That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
Guy steps out of Times Square station. Smashes it on the side.
Welcome to the Zero Indent Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined, as always, by Patrick from A Method to the Madness, a man at the theatre who doesn't know CPR, but is getting involved anyway.
I'm just heroic like that. What can I say?
That's just your natural heroism statistic coming out. And your perception of -10 means you don't realize your girlfriend is definitely going to break up with you. And we're joined, as always, by Darth, the first trombone of the Traveling Symphony.
Hello there.
Did you play trombone or trumpet? Because I know that you and Eric were band kids, but what was your instrument?
It was trombone, and ironically, I do have a CinemaSins moment for when they're walking around.
I thought you
I
might.
know.
I'll have to bleep that because the first 2 minutes, but I picked this show specifically because I was like, I think Darth will love it, and Patrick's going to be a little bit bored, but also kind of like it. But I was very worried that the focus on music was going to just be like this litany of Darth being like, well, actually, I think you'll find when you play a violin like that, it actually doesn't work that way. So that's exciting for us. We're talking about Station 11, the miniseries adaptation of Emily St. John Mandel's novel. Those who sort of don't know the backstory here, so Emily St. John Mandel, Canadian author, not that big of a name, had her book published 2015, 2016, Station 11, and then it wasn't until 2020 during the word we can't say that is definitely going to get this entire series demonetized. So head to patreon.com/zeroindent to help support us, because we're not making any ad revenue because we're going to have to keep saying the word pandemic. But before the pandemic, not really a known author, and then during lockdown, she kind of blew up and became famous, literally as lockdown was happening, and then proceeded to write 2 sequels to Station 11, one of which was kind of, I would call it a monograph, almost autobiographical about her time on her tour for Station 11 as lockdown started to happen, and then Glass Hotel as well, which is a bit more of a sort of corporate espionage book. They're very odd. I recommend all 3. They're fantastic novels. They're brilliantly written. But we are covering the miniseries adaptation that was helmed by Patrick Somerville. Somerville was originally contracted to do all 3 books, but obviously at this stage we've only had the 1 miniseries. Before we get into it, today we're talking about episodes 1 and 2. This, of course, is our continuation of our post-apocalyptic unit, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon subscribers who help make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. Before we get started, I have to know, I'm dying to know, I know Darth loved it, so we're going to come to you in a second. Patrick, what was the vibe? Because I very rarely, this is the first time I've just cold made you watch something out of the blue, no recommendation, just this is for the show. How did you find it? What was your vibe?
I wasn't bored. I loved it. I thought it was, every now and again you find something that came out recently that sort of goes against the grain of the the tone and atmosphere that shows have in this general time. It was kind of crawling at a snail's pace, which I loved. The characters are stilted and awkward, and the themes are quite unique for a post-apocalypse story. It's not so much about morality as it is about I don't know, truth and something about a higher truth that transcends your setting or something like that. And it's structured unconventionally. I always love a story about, a reluctant grown man choosing to look after a little girl.
We stand that as a dad genre that we all stand.
Yes.
But I think the difference here is he's not guy with gun. He's just guy. you know?
Yeah, a guy who has panic attacks.
Yeah, he's just panic attack guy. He's not gun guy. And that there is a lot I want to talk about from a genre perspective of where I think St. John Mandel and her source material plays pretty heavily with the way that Somerville ends up constructing what genre space the show ends up having. Because I think, as you say, one of the biggest things that's difficult about the show is like, it's not really any one genre more than it is... and there's not a good literary term for this. I've been doing a bunch of research into it for something else I'm working on, but the book as well is structured very similarly and unconventionally, where it's a lot of like emotion or ideas that drive like scene changes, not necessarily conflict or like logical this then that. So an example might be, and I'm sure we'll talk about quite a few of these in these first 2 episodes, but an example might be, I'm making this up, right? But 2 characters are talking about the last time it rained, or there's really, really heavy rain, and then the scene changes and it's one of the characters walking with an umbrella 20 years ago into a scene that then becomes about something else, that then transitions to something else at the end of it that's related to an idea or an emotion or a feeling or a memory. Mandel's writing is very heavily focused on this kind of... She writes about this impossible task that we all try and accomplish every day, where we have this vast ocean of experiences, and we try and hold these experiences, and we take these buckets after bucket after bucket of this ocean, trying to hold the shape of the entire strangeness and disaster of life, and we try and make it into these buckets. We keep taking this water and trying to make it into a shape. And I think for Mandel, her work is about the way that grief exists in a perpetual state alongside the having of something. Like the grief of something and the having of something are in some ways the same thing, and that transcends time and space for Mandel. And I think these first 2 episodes are a pretty clear indication to me that in Somerville's miniseries, he's trying to achieve the same thing. There's a lot of vacillation between a thought and a feeling, and things being superimposed into places where they're not. And yeah, it's very unusual for a TV show, is my feeling.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, the show seems to be most interested in stirring up intense emotions in the characters, and it's sort of like, you know, the traveling theater group is like a narrative conduit to express those themes, you know, via like comparison with you know, like when she's giving the what are they doing, Hamlet? She's doing the Hamlet speech, and it's contrasting against her losing her, or finding out her parents are dead, and just drawing a direct parallel between, like, I don't know, self-fulfillment and sincere, like, true, intense emotion. It's like, that's like the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think maybe for something I want to put a pin in for us to kind of keep an eye on is like the place of art in this story, because I think this is also a show intensely interested in like what is art. We'll talk about it when we get to the summary and some of the big pieces here, but like there is a physical object in this world that is like central to the narrative and central to the emotion of the thing, and it's a comic book, right? It's a piece of art. As is the traveling symphony who performed Shakespeare, as you sort of alluded there, Pat. Yeah, it's fascinating to have a show so specifically thinking and feeling about like what is it to make something, and like what does memory mean, and what does it mean to exist. And as you say, that scene, which we'll talk about in some detail, where she's doing the Hamlet monologue while she's, you know, and it's the Hamlet monologue where he's trying not to, his mom is basically like, hey, can you just like get over this? Like your dad's dead. I married your uncle. Like, you're being a bit of a bitch about this. And Hamlet's like, dude, that's not why I'm pissed off. And he can't say that he suspects that his uncle killed his dad. He has to sort of talk in circles around this grief, and he gets increasingly upset throughout the scene. And as she's doing this, you're flashing back to when she found out her parents died. It's gut-wrenching, because it's like how much of that is actually acting and how much of that is just she's reliving that moment. And every time they do Hamlet, is she just reliving that moment every time for that scene? And what does that mean? Is that where is the line with sincerity at that point? And is it authentic? And you know, we can all sort of have questions like that. But Darth, I'm so keen to get into this. What were your thoughts? How did this hit you? And yeah, what are your high level takeaways from the first 2 episodes before we get stuck in?
I told you in the chat that I was just going to go on and binge the whole show, and you shamed me into not doing so. But that's, if I don't really like something, I am not going to sit and binge it straight. Like I do not do that. But I was very eager to do so. And this one I actually watched twice. I know you're supposed to do that as part of this review. I just don't normally do that. But this one I was like, yeah, I'm watching it. I'm watching it again.
I never said you had to watch things twice. I just said that's what I do.
You should.
Yeah.
Because you know, the essay that I'm working on, that's massive. And I'm like, if you're doing all this stuff, you got to watch it. You got to watch stuff multiple times if you're going to be looking for the deeper meaning and all this stuff. And I was finding out, like, there were bits of dialogue that I completely missed the first time. And I'm like, oh, that completely changes, like, the stuff with Jeevan later on, because I missed this little tiny bit of dialogue here. Mm-hmm. So the rewatches are really helpful, and having subtitles on is also really helpful.
Yes, there's some dialogue in this where you're like, I'm sorry, what? But I also think that's part of, this is going to be the wankiest thing I've ever said. I think that part of the art is not always knowing what people are saying, because that's part of experiencing reality, right? And I think for a first time,
Nolan speaking right now.
It's me. Part of, how does he sound? He's posh, isn't he? Don't know why I did a chav accent. No, but yeah, I think that's part of it, is like life is a lot of conversations that are half heard or half interrupted. And then there's a naturalistic quality to this dialogue, certainly. But I agree. So you came away positive. That's good. What do you think the show is going to be about, Darth? Like, what's your kind of, at this stage, or are you just like, I don't know?
Yeah, I have no idea, especially with the little glimpse of that you get at the end of episode 1, which right now, having only watched 2 episodes, I wish they would have left that little bit out, which is so odd because I'm the sci-fi, like the glimpse of the space station. Right? Like, I'm the sci-fi guy, but I'm like, why did you have to make this sci-fi? This was such a cool story just without the sci-fi bit, it's just so weird for me to be saying that, but that's where I'm at.
Oh, man. That's going to be really funny in 4 episodes. Remember that you said that. Remember that you said that, and prepare to eat your hat, my friend. Okay, let's do the summary. I am so excited to talk about this TV show. So I want to say 2 things really quickly at the top. I adore the books. I think that of the 3, I think Station 11 prosaically, and I want to alight something that I think is kind of a core cultural issue at the moment in fiction and the literary kind of publishing world in general, which is, I think that one of the biggest tragedies of the book talk era of reading is a complete focus on character, concept, and theme at the expense of a focus on language. One of my largest concerns from a literacy perspective is there are a huge number of novels that are becoming extremely successful that are stylistically and prosaically almost unreadable, right? Lauren Roberts is a really good example, not to keep throwing shade at her. I realize I've done that a lot on TikTok, but, you know, she's an author who has a bunch of interesting characters, but her style and her prose is really quite bad, to the point where, like, I had to force myself to read through that first Powerless novel. It's really quite awful from a stylistic perspective. There's no vision. I think Brandon Sanderson is a big kind of proponent of spreading this as well, where all of his novels are written in exactly the same style, regardless of the context of the novel, right? His high epic fantasy, Mistborn series, is written in the same prosaic style as his far future sci-fi series. There's no difference in the way that characters think, view, and narrate the world. And I think that Station 11 as a novel is one of the great examples of the way in which the words are actually the only thing that exist, right? The words in a novel are the only thing that actually exist, and they construct character and they construct meaning and perspective. And Emily St. Emily St. John Mandel is a fantastic author, and if you haven't, you should definitely read Sea of Tranquility at the very least, as a companion to Station 11. The miniseries, I think it does a really good job of giving you an insight into how she writes without having to read the novel alongside the TV show, which I think would be confusing because there are some differences that I'm mostly not going to talk about because except for some stuff toward the very end, I don't know that that's particularly productive in this case. But yeah, just wanted to say,
can I
shout out?
Oh, yeah.
No.
All right. Can I just pile on to this random author, Lauren Roberts? I've never heard of her, but the Powerless, and then the next novel after that is called Powerful, that's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a bland choice.
I knew I was in trouble with that book, with Powerless, where it's like on the second page, a character, it's a young adult, it's a YA dystopian novel, and a character is described as, it's like she looked upon the city rebelliously. And I was like, bro, this is going to be bad. I'm going to have a hard time. It's just like, what does that even mean? Anyway, we can get into adverbs a different time. We are going to start by talking about episode 1, Wheel of Fire, directed by Hiro Murai and written by Patrick Somerville. Not our Patrick, different Patrick. Our Patrick, could we please hear? That was confusing as shit. Could we please hear this? I'm on one today, boys.
I like this director, Hiro Murai. I like him because he directed the Atlanta episode where Donald Glover does the Michael Jackson thing.
Yes. He's great.
Yeah.
He also he did a bunch of The Bear as well. He was an EP on
Oh,
The Bear.
did he? Nice.
Yeah.
The night it happened, during the climax of King Lear, actor Arthur Leander dies on stage. An audience member, Jeevan Chaudray, sees the heart attack and intervenes, but Arthur is dead in seconds. In the aftermath of Arthur's death, he looks after a little girl called Kirsten. 10 days before, Miranda visits Arthur in his green room. Their relationship is thin, estranged. Miranda gives Arthur a copy of her comic book, Station 11. The night it happened, Jeevan escorts Kirsten home on the L train. Jeevan's sister calls him to warn him about a flu that's spreading. And not just a bad flu, but a flu so bad it's too late to run. Meanwhile, Clark, Arthur's best friend, begins calling everyone from Arthur's life to inform them of his death. He prepares to fly out to Arthur's funeral. Elsewhere, Jeevan finally comes to terms with his sister's warning. He gathers trolley after trolley after trolley of supplies with Kirsten trailing. Jeevan and Kirsten take their supplies to Frank's just as a Boeing 747 crashes into the Docklands. The world is most definitely ending. 80 days after the collapse, Jeevan and Kirsten finally leave the apartment and head north through the icy corpse of Chicago. 2 black spots shifting against the endless pale of snowfall and silence. Years later, an adult Kirsten pores over a battered copy of Station 11.
Very well done. Patrick, apologies for how weirdly written that was. As I said, I am on one
That's
today.
okay.
So, let's talk about the theater. There's a lot that we could get into with this show, and we could be here for literally hours, and I'm sure we will. But I think that starting with a theater and Shakespeare is probably the boldest, line in the sand of a thesis statement of being like, what is my show about? Being like, it's Shakespeare and there's a deadly flu. It's all here, guys. It's great.
Well, I feel like another just as important element is you have Shakespeare and then you hear the sound of texting and it's equally as loud. I feel I'm immediately like, okay, what themes of disassociation or something, like apathy, and that did seem to play out as the episode went on. Themes of agency and stuff like that.
Say more about the phone thing.
Well, because okay, speaking of like the importance and significance of art, like Shakespeare is it, right? He's if aliens come to Earth 30,000 years from now, humanity's wiped out, what was the things we left behind in a box for aliens to find? Shakespeare, probably.
Yeah. No, it'd be Stephen King, brother.
Oh yeah, they find David McNeil's box.
Yeah.
And a copy of like Disco Elysium on a USB or something.
It'll be a Nintendo Switch 2, and the only game on it is Disco Elysium.
So like the art with like the most complex themes and irony and flowery writing, and then this kid is like couldn't care less, like she's just on her phone on the TikToks, consuming the brain rot kind of thing. It's sort of like a I don't know, it's sort of like a paradox. Like, how can you be that disinterested in like what is like humanity's like greatest achievement to coming close to truth through art kind of thing. And I feel like as the sequence goes on, and Jeevan has to go through these dilemmas of taking responsibility to help this girl out. I feel like there's themes of like of decision and agency going on. What is true and important to you? What are you supposed to decide and act out in real life? What's the best decision to make? How do those decisions get informed? That's all stuff that is, truth. And how do you find that stuff out? Through art. Mm-hmm. That was sort of a melting pot of themes that I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of see, see the backside of this like stitch. Yeah.
Those are probably good ones to put up on the board. I think also like literally the phone, as we know it, like the smartphone is also going to be like a thing that this show will be talking and thinking about. And not in like a sneery, like, oh, kids really do be on their phones type of way, but in like a, what does technology do? Like mechanistically, what does smartphones do, and what is their power, and what is their how do they rob us of agency, and how do they grant us agency, right? One of the best parts about this experience of Jeevan at the theater is, as we kind of said in the summary, Arthur Leander is in the middle of one of the speeches toward the end of King Lear. He basically dies in a second. And one of the things that's happening as the speech is going off, as you say, Pat, is one of the people next to Jeevan's girlfriend is texting. But like with the clicky clacky, like the and then like the whoop. And we do phone sounds. But like they've got the phone sounds on, which is like the most unhinged thing you can possibly. Not only in a theater, but to have a mobile phone and to leave on the like audio feedback for typing and stuff is buck wild to me. That's insane behavior. And to have your phone not on silent at all times, also wild behavior. But then the thing
I'm pretty sure that those were, I think that those were the iPhone sounds, if I'm correct. So that's
that's correct.
A typical, typical Apple user.
Now, the audio listener, go watch the video. What are you doing? You're missing all kinds of fun gestures. What's kind of fun about Jeevan as a character is he's kind of a useless schmuck a little bit, but also like he, as you say, Pat, he finds himself taking responsibility rather reluctantly, but not in like a I'm a reluctant hero kind of way, but in a way where it feels like his entire life is a series of reluctant decisions. She's at one point when they're getting on the train, Kirsten's like, what kind of job do you have? And he's like, I'm a reporter, like a cultural crit. And then he's like, I had a website, I don't have a job. It's like, you know, she's like, oh, it must be hard not knowing what you want to be. And he's like, oh, it takes some time. And Kirsten blinks and she goes, I'm 8. It's so funny. But he's just a guy who like just never really got his life together is the vibe that you get from Jeevan. And, you know, this moment of the world collapsing, the way that he is able to get ahead of this is through his phone, right? So as much as I think this show is going to be critical and critically interested in technology and indeed technological determinism, which we shall get to, as it relates to materialism, as it relates to the post-apocalypse, but also I think there's a keen awareness of the power that these pieces of technology have, right? His sister's able to call him and warn him, knowing that she's dying, right? Like, she knows she's fucked. She knows her goose is cooked, but she can save her brothers. And, you know, it's while he's trying to have this conversation with her, which is basically like the world is ending, there's two guys watching fucking football on their phone, right? Like, phones are here, is I guess the thing I want to foreground and put a big circle around is this question of like phones and technology, and in particular, this is a little sizzle. In particular, for next time, the internet is something that we will be thinking about, because you know what doesn't exist at the in the post-apocalypse, guys? The freaking internet. You know what you can't do? You can't Google anything. You know what I mean? Wikipedia's gone. What do you get? Oh, wait, you gonna watch YouTube? Nah, dude, no signal, no Wi-Fi. You know what I mean? So like, I also think that the question of the loss of technology and the internet is also something that I think St. John Mandel is very interested in, and that this show reflects in, I think, a much more direct way. Darth's making a face.
Something, yeah, because something interesting about the phones is that, like, I get what you're describing, but he doesn't use his phone like a smartphone. If I'm remembering correctly, he only gets phone calls, right? Whereas we see Kirsten, she's doom scrolling until her phone dies, right? So it's showing the two different counterpoints of like the usefulness of the device. And then in episode 2, when Kirsten and her friend are out there and Kirsten's talking about the how phones used to be able to hold music and all this stuff, and the start of that was maps and like Uber. So like functional navigation, right? So like the 3 different ways that they're talking about cell phones are all 3 ways incredibly different. And one of them is like, I wish we had this productive use of this technology, you know? And then the kid, the, you know, Gen Z or whatever she's supposed to be now that we're inferring, is the one who's doom scrolling and not using it for the, you know, quote unquote, like right thing.
I think it's probably an astute observation. Yeah. Like but also like, I think that the show so far hasn't really passed a judgment on like what that means. Like when Jeevan says I had a website, like you kind of get the implication like maybe he was like a blogger or an internet journalist or something. So you have to start to wonder like what's his relationship to technology, and also what is his relationship to reality, because it really does seem like his girlfriend clearly is in the process of leaving him, and he is saying to Kirsten, she's like, "Oh, you're gonna get married?" He's like, "Yeah, probably." It's like, well, is he just kidding himself, or is he not aware? He doesn't know CPR, but he decided to get involved anyway. But he knows the signs of a heart attack. Like, what is that about? Like I think there's a thinness to Jeevan's engagement with reality and with his phone. He does text at one point. But yeah, you're right. He doesn't use it as a smartphone. He uses it as a phone with a capital P, I guess. Just an interesting observation. Yeah. So, I want to talk. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff I want to get to. I also just want to say really quickly, this is a really good-looking TV show. Like, and when I say good-looking, I mean that there is a difference between shows that look expensive. Like, I think the Fallout TV show looks expensive. Doesn't necessarily look good. This show looks good and is clearly expensive. But very, very pretty. The shot where Jeevan comes out from behind, from backstage, and he comes out to the empty theater, and it's just him silhouetted against like this big empty theater with these golden lights. I thought it just looked so good. It's very pretty.
Well, even before that, the very opening shots of the theater in the apocalypse, and there's grass and there's hogs in there trying to get it on, and the playbills are still on the floor and all of this stuff, and then it just immediately same wide shot cuts to modern day, and I'm like, did they grow grass in there? Like, this looks so good.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I
they
think
built a theater.
every match shot of the apocalypse, like the comparison shots are like so well done. Yeah, it's so pretty.
I love the sound effects that go with it as well. There's like a and there's always a light that goes on or off, which will be important. That is like a thing to keep an eye on. But yeah, the match shots are incredible, and yeah, basically like it's all real for the most part. So they build these sets, they use them for all of this. I don't know how the fuck you shoot this, by the way. This would have just been a production undertaking, because they shoot all the theater shots that really happen in that physical space in a theater, and then they do all of the set dressing to make it old, and they shoot all the the post-apocalypse shots. But they did that for all of the places where that changes. It's not CG. I don't know how the fuck he filmed. This would have been a nightmare. I do not envy the production staff. It's an absolute achievement.
I swear, like, the most impressive feats of like engineering come from like entertainment production. It's like,
yeah,
like building entire towns for a movie set, that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's some real Chris Nolan stuff for sure. Speaking of the theater, so Kirsten and Jeevan go on the train, and then we can talk about Miranda and Arthur in a second. Darth, do you have something before we do that?
Yeah.
The CinemaSins thing.
so-
Fine, whatever. Is this a ding?
No, this one is more just, I think it would have been way more powerful in the opening when you're looking at the post-apocalypse, because it just immediately cuts from that to modern-day King Lear. I would have loved to have heard Arthur's voice, like, slowly coming in, so you're hearing King Lear over the apocalypse, and then it cuts to him. I think that could have been a lot more powerful, but I'm not really sure I was interested in what y'all thought about that. And then the cause of Arthur's death also I was interested by, because I could argue that it was not the virus. And if it was not the virus, then what was the point of him having a heart attack?
So, that's a really good question. And I mean that as in, like, it's a good question. Like, it is a question this story is asking you to think about, right? It's like, what does that mean? Because it's also the thing, if you think about it, that there's probably another 2 hours left of King Lear. If Arthur doesn't die, and Jeevan doesn't go up, and Jeevan doesn't end up walking home, and he ends up staying in the theater, does he miss his sister's calls because his phone is on silent? Does he get the flu while he's in the theater? Like, does he get the flu on the L train home if he gets the train later? Like, there are so many times that I think this story wants you to think about people and objects in space, right? And like the sheer amount of entropy, like the fact that Arthur dies right at that moment and Jeevan decides to get involved right at that second, like that completely changes Jeevan's life, as does every single tiny micro decision that Jeevan makes throughout his life that lead him up to that moment. So like, I don't know the answer, Darth, and I think that perhaps, not to be too wanky, that is perhaps the point. Is it's going, what does this mean? What if it wasn't the flu? Like, what, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's part of the thing that's happening with a lot of these things, right? Like, what if Kirsten's parents didn't go on that trip that weekend? You know, like, there are so many times, you know, Clark is about to get on a plane to go to a funeral. That seems like a really bad idea during the end of the world where there's a fucking killer flu. Like, you don't get on a plane when there's a pandemic. And there's a really great line, I think, that from Sea of Tranquility, where one of the characters, who is the Emily St. John Mandel insert character, she sort of has the thought of like, you know, people talk about pandemics as being pretty well contained, but if a pandemic is anything other than completely contained, it's not contained. And so Leander's death, I think, is a great kicking off point for he dies and the world ends, and are those two things related or not, is something the show will want you to think about. And we'll keep pushing and pulling in both directions, I think, as the show goes on, because as you may have guessed, these characters aren't... Arthur's a character in the story. His death is not the end of his appearance. And you obviously get the next scene with him and Miranda. But he will be in the show and having things to say and think and feel. And the way it positions Arthur's death as the beginning of the end of the world will probably mean something to you by the end of it. You'll have a big thought or feeling about that one way or the other, is my guess.
And I didn't say it out loud just in case anyone's wondering, but this virus is presented as a respiratory virus that assumedly your lungs fill up and you choke to death based on all of the other examples that we've seen in the first episode. And Arthur had no coughing at all. It was just a straight up heart attack. So that's why I was saying that I do not think it was actually the virus that was presented. And part of both that and the texting that the other guy was doing was like, at this point, Sia was already having a hospital overflowed with people, right? So I'm like, is this guy texting because, his family's in the hospital, and is Arthur dying because of this virus? Is this leading up to something, or are these completely unrelated points that are trying to talk about technology and trying to talk about, all this other stuff? So anyway.
Yeah, no, well observed. I want to talk about, Pat, anything there you want to touch on?
No.
No? Okay. Miranda goes to visit Arthur. I'm doing my best to give you guys these names because I know you guys are terrible with names. So I'm going to try and keep repeating them so that you remember them.
I have notes this time.
Very good. Physical paper notes.
I'm improving.
Okay. He's doing it, folks. That's a real Mitchie maneuver if ever I've seen one. Mitchie takes physical notes, which I always envy. But then, I just type so much faster than I write. Anyway, so Miranda visits Arthur, and she gives him a copy of her comic book, Station 11, only for us to see the comic in Kirsten's bag on the train platform. And Arthur has a line that is very important where Kirsten's like, oh, who's that? To the person on the cover. And Arthur says something to the effect of, that's the fucker who, ruined my life, or something like that. It's some sentence like that. Arthur
Did that confuse either one of you?
Well, I know where it's going, so it didn't confuse me. But yeah, what do you think that means? Also, for a thing that he then gives away immediately, I think is super interesting.
So it's a comic book that Kirsten writes. Sorry, not Kirsten. The Miranda writes. Who is Miranda? What's the relationship?
We don't know yet.
We don't know.
They used to date was the implication I got.
That is
it seemed that way.
There's some past, romantic something.
Oh, okay. So I guess the person on the cover of that comic book is someone who is entangled in their lives. And what Arthur says that this person ruined my life. Is that what he says?
The spaceman on the front.
It was a spaceman. Okay. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that is.
I did not at all see that. I thought that the circle was like a Stargate, and all of the things were people way in the background. And I'm like, how is she picking out one single person in the background of all of that?
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't until the second watch that I'm like, oh, that's an astronaut's helmet.
The astronaut in question, the central astronaut. We will probably do for one of the Patreon bonuses. They published the comic book. We might actually read it for one of the bonuses toward the end of the season because I think it could be interesting. But my suspicion is that Arthur is referring to the comic, not necessarily the astronaut. Perhaps. I don't think he's being literal. He's not the actual astronaut. I think he's kind of being because she says it's finally finished. Implying that it's taken some doing, and him saying, it's that fucker who ruined my life or whatever, implies that she was working on it while they were together, and they seem quite estranged. So my putting the pieces together, my suspicion is the comic book is some big project that has been ongoing and was ongoing during their relationship and is somehow responsible for their marriage falling apart, or he blames the comic in some capacity.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an object imbued with conflict and aura.
Yeah, when
It's
is important to Kirsten as well, right? Like she's reading that 20 years into the apocalypse, and we get just the all-time lines from that comic book throughout. We sort of started to get peppered in, you know, the opening line of the comic book, which is "I remember damage," and then escape. Oh, are you fucking joking? Like sometimes, Emily St. John Mandel just has it like. Some people can just do the damn thing, and Emily St. John Mandel can write a fucking book. And there is nothing better in this adaptation than any time where they give you the direct lines from the comic, because they're so iconic. It's just like, so good. It makes me angry. It's so good. I remember damage and then escape. Like, are you kidding me? God. Anyway.
And this is one of those times where this is one of those examples of why like reviewing and not just going after your initial gut reaction, but like why that's so important. Because the first time, like the first watch throughout the, you know, both episodes, and I'm like, I hate that. Like, I remember damage. What is that? It's not give me a sentence. I don't understand it. I don't like it. And then after that, when I went back and I was watching it, I was like, I love this. That's such a cool sentence. I love it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you gotta get away from those gut reactions because,
Yeah, that's what you're saying is that your reptile brain is just cursed. You know, never trust that reptile brain. I get it. So I want to talk about two things before we get, because I think the second episode is where we can get into like the comic book and the spaceman and stuff, and what all that might mean. I want to talk about obviously the phone call from Frank's sister is pretty much horrifying, because Jeevan and Kirsten are walking home, and Jeevan and Frank's sister, whose name I have completely forgotten, if she even gets named. Sia. She works in the hospital.
S-I-A.
Sia, what like the singer? She is working in the hospital. She's clearly a nurse or a doctor or something. And the exact way that she phrases it is, she says people are walking around already exposed and they don't know it. Avoid contact with anyone, just you and just Frank. And when she ends the phone call, she says goodbye, but in like a completely permanent way that gives me like chills every time. It's just the acting here is very keen, where it's quite casually permanent. And this is what Jeevan has. Jeevan has his panic attack as he gets off the train, and then continues to slide into this quiet panic as he and Kirsten go to the grocery store, and he buys $10,000 worth of groceries, which is extremely funny to me. And the kid the kid's like, oh, is there like something going on? And he goes, yeah, you should like go. Like, he's like, where should I go somewhere? Jeevan's like, yeah, go home. And I think Kirsten's actor here does such a fantastic job. Kid acting, hard thing to get right. And she has this perfect balance of like uber seriousness that comes with being a child, and a kind of levity and youthfulness to her that I think really sells these performances, as does Jeevan's awkwardness, as he sort of... I'm curious what you guys make of this. As they're leaving, she resolves to go home, and he lies to her face. Do you guys think that she knows he is lying? He basically says like, oh, like I was wrong, like the world's not ending, like it was your parents, they texted me back and they said it was cool if you come stay with us. Like, do you think she knows he's lying? What did you guys read that scene as?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I think a lot of the time we're too keen to attribute like more intelligence and agency to kids in like movies and TV shows than they would have in real life. I think a kid does want to be told what to do, basically. And I feel like yes, she probably does know that he's lying, but like it's it doesn't matter really. Like if to her, like it's she has like a feeling that this guy's trustworthy kind of thing, and she's willing to accept what this white lie in order to go with him kind of thing.
Yeah, it gives her permission, right? Like that's the thing that she needs.
Yeah,
is like
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
permission to stay, basically.
And I love the I mean, you know, there's obviously one big element that's Jeevan is in crisis mode right now. You know, it's never a good time to accept that the world is ending, kind of thing. And he at the station he tries to ditch Kirsten subconsciously. But then I also like the other part of the mental calculation of like, I a grown man cannot ask this little girl to come back to my brother's place with me. That is not okay. But also what, and then, you know, he sees her walking away. He's like, okay, I can't abandon this child. And then, yeah.
It's a
and
series
so
of like,
this solution where he's like,
I can't do this. Fuck. I also can't do that. God damn it. Like,
yeah.
yeah. Just completely unequipped to deal with children is the other thing that's pretty clear about Jeevan.
Yeah, but
Also,
it's I don't know. It's such a sweet relationship.
You go, Darth.
I had very similar thoughts about how Hollywood tends to portray kids, because she says that she's 8, and that's only like a year more than my current eldest nephew, and the amount of adulthood that is in this girl, like, that's so rare in real life for an actual 8-year-old. Like, just getting on the bus by yourself or train, whatever, and not being scared, and being with a stranger on a bus and not being scared, or walking down the street by yourself. Like, her walking away from Jeevan in that parking lot, like, most kids wouldn't be able to do that because they'd be so terrified. So it's like they're trying to portray her as being so adult, and maybe that'll play in. Plus, also, I guess she's an 8-year-old that's doing Shakespeare, so she is supposed to be abnormal, I guess.
Well, I think it seems to imply that her parents are maybe like not the most like sort of attentive parents or whatever, considering that like she's, you know, she gets looked after by the actor dude a lot, and like, you know, it sort of implies that she is used to taking care of herself, maybe.
Yeah, that was a huge question for me. I was like, I wrote down, are her parents bad at their jobs, or is this normal for theater kids to travel alone but not even have their own house key? Like, there were so many parts of it that like had to happen for the story to progress the way it did, but then also that just seemed really weird to me.
Yeah, one thing that will become abundantly clear about Emily St. John Mandel's characters is that she clearly grew up in like the middle of fucking nowhere in Canada. And occasionally there are things where it's like, it's not, cities don't really work like that. I think this is one of them where it's like, yeah, you probably would leave your kid with a handler and you would leave the adult with the key. Probably. Like, that does make sense to me. I don't know, like, we did a lot of like free childcare stuff when we were kids, because single mom and all that, and like a lot of that was just like, I don't know, like the kid has to go somewhere. You gotta do something with the kid, and it's a lot of like, okay, just don't leave this area, you'll be fine. So I do also think that there's an implication that maybe Kirsten's parents aren't that affectionate, but might be quite well off. You know, which fucking 8-year-old has the time and the luxury to do acting and Shakespeare? Like, you kind of have to be fairly privileged, I think, for that to be an option. So I also do think that they might just be bad at their job. Like, I think that's possible.
Man, we never hit on the fact that this was the performance, and her parents weren't there.
Yeah, exactly. They're somewhere out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know? Makes you
I
think.
feel even sorry for her.
I know. She had it rough, man. And then the fucking world ended, bro. Ugh, you hate to see it. Yeah, she's great. They go to Frank's, and on the way, you get this, again, great, like, just the specificity, right? There's a 4-wheel drive, like, sort of banked with the wheel spinning, and there's a guy inside dying, you know, basically coughing to death, and he goes to get out, and Jeevan has to like force the door closed and be like, stay in there, like I'll call you an ambulance. And then they leave, and it's so haunting, like it's so specific. I was quite captured by the visual of it, and how sort of it's both dramatic and also not melodramatic. I don't know how, there's some line that it walks that I think, because when Jeevan shoves the door closed, the guy actually listens to him, sort of. I don't know, there's something about it that didn't feel too much for me. And just was also very scary. I think it really highlights the extent to which, like, you forget that, like, in a pandemic, like, people just are walking around with this, like, cloud of death around them. Like, that you can't see. This, like, invisible cloud of death that could be, like, anywhere. It's terrifying.
Just that location of, like, in the middle of a park or something, under a street lamp, and, you know, the way it's framed, it gives it, like, a very ethereal kind of feeling, and just, like, it's such a unique, striking, like, audio-visual thing of a car, you know, trying to accelerate into a tree. Like, in what other situation would you see that? That's not like a man dying of a disease, like a rapidly, you know, killing disease in his car. And Jeevan, like, he decides, he makes a decision pretty quickly, and, you know, in this case correctly, to, like, not help the guy and say, like, don't you get out of this fucking car, like, you just stay right where you are, I'm not going to help you, you need to help yourself. And, you know, we didn't talk about the panic attack he has in the store, and he says something like, he has one, moves on, then he's about to have another one, then he goes, oh, it's like I already had my panic attack back there, and he sort of has this realization, or like he learns how to control it to a degree, and it's like from that point on he's like made up his mind about, like, what he's going to do and how he's going to act and what priorities he's going to take and stuff like that. Like, he's like, all right, gonna get to my brother's, gonna bring this girl with me, we're gonna follow my sister's instructions, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the second he lies to Kirsten, he's resolved. And you got to think about this too. He's resolved to probably never see his girlfriend again. That's the other thing that goes unsaid here. Like, she's gone home. She's probably gonna die. Like, they're probably like that's just like the decision he makes at that moment is like, it's me, my brother, and this girl, and that's just it. Yeah.
I was trying to remember if there's enough examples to say that this is a theme running throughout, that a theme of hiding the truth or lying to people in order to spare their, you know, anxiety because they can't do anything to stop the thing. Because you've got the two examples we had already talked about, and then the pregnant girl leaving their caravan later on, and she hid it from Kirsten the whole time and didn't tell her to spare her feelings. And maybe there's more examples, but that just popped into my head. And then I also had that first panic attack written down, and I was like, why did that happen? I don't get what having them get off the train here solved, because they could have gone to the house, seen no one was there, and then gone to the grocery store, and it would have been the same flow. So the only thing that changed was when he had the second panic attack, it didn't really affect him because he's like, I already went through this today. You know, I got out of my system, whatever.
Well, but he gets off the train because they're surrounded by people. Like, I think that's, like, mechanically what happens there. Because that's, his sister calls him, and she's like, you know, because, like, if someone tells you, like, the pandemic, it's a deadly flu, the first thing you would do is, like, this is a metal tube full of people, and you get those close-ups of him looking at all the people in the train, and then sort of getting off. I think that to me is my, again, if you think about the stories being materialist in that sense, where it is concerned with, like, fleshy objects in space, that makes complete sense to me. As a thing to do there, would be like, I'm reacting to the physical world around me. And again, materialism, just to put the definition again, is that the suggestion that the world is reducible to physical, massy objects that are produced by and exert ideology, right? Like, a train exerts ideology because it goes from one place to another, and you have to decide where it starts and where it ends, and you have to move things out of the way. Who owns those things that are moved out of the way? That produces an exerts ideology. Who owns the train line? How much do you pay for a train? Those things all produce an exert ideology. And in this case, at the end of the world, literally, it's a tube full of people. It's the worst place you could be during a pandemic. That's not true. I suppose an airplane would be way worse. Or a very small elevator.
Yeah, as we will see.
Well, okay. Before we go too much further, Sia's phone call is one thing that I had a short CinemaSins about, which this is not me griping. It was just, this is interesting and not how it works in real life.
Wow, here we go. This will be good.
But this, that is, if I have it correct, is this the scene where she's she gets off the phone and then she's talking with the kids?
That's later.
At the hospital? That's
Those
later?
are two separate scenes, but doesn't matter. They happen separately, but it doesn't matter.
But in that scene, all of the kids have on masks. She has on a mask and she's going through like, do you have any symptoms? Blah, blah, blah. She leaves the room, immediately coughs into her hand instead of her elbow, like nurses are trained to do. The masks that they're wearing are not actually N95s that are rated for this kind of airborne sickness. None of the staff in the hospital is wearing anything. Like, this is airborne. They know it. They know that it's affecting everyone's lungs. Everyone is coughing and no one is wearing masks. Like, the hospital people aren't wearing masks. Like, there were so many things that I was like, if this had happened, like if this story had been written after 2020, 2021, how different would it have been? You know, because this stuff wasn't as common knowledge back when she was initially writing it, right?
Yeah, but the TV show
Isn't
was
there
made...
a line though where they... Isn't there a line where they go like, oh, there's a shipment that got misdirected or something? And it sort of like implies that there's like a, you know, there's chaos of resources and infrastructure and stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
I think that
a
was
shipment from the CDC or something.
Yeah, but I think that was medicine. Because the N95 should be really common. And also, like, every time that you go in and out of any room in the hospital, there's like hand sanitizer that you have to put on when you're going in and out, even for like guests. And the doctors and nurses are definitely doing it.
Okay, well, unfortunately, it's
Weird.
a TV show, so
I know. That's why I said, like, I'm not griping, but I'm also like, it's interesting to say that, like, if they had a, you know, someone consulting and been like, you know, these things would make it more realistic. And it's not like that adds a ton to the story, but it adds a little bit.
This is funny. This is like listening to Jeevan, because he's like, where'd you learn this? Oh, ER.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing to think about is like, what might that say if that's not a mistake? Okay, and again, stay with me. I realize this is like the work of this show. Assume it's not a mistake, right? Assume that those are decisions that were made. What might that say, right, about Sia? She already knows she's dead. These people working in the hospital, they know they're dead. It's the game is up. It doesn't matter. Like, that is the other way that you could read that, is like, fuck it. Like, you know, they're at the fuck it we ball stage where they're like, they're all doing goodbye phone calls, right? Like, that's the thing that they're talking about as they're working. Like, you might imagine a day ago, 10 hours ago, they might have been wearing PPE, but like, they're already exposed, they're already fucking dead, it doesn't matter. Sia already has a cough. Like, there's nothing they can do. The world is coming apart at the seams. I think that's the other way you could read that, is if you assume it's not a mistake, what does that produce for you in the text? And I think that you could read it as quite fatalistic, is perhaps what I would put forward.
I think for that reading, you'd have to cut her last scene where she and two coworkers are like literally walking out the door with their coats on to go home. And someone walks up with a hurt person and they're like, please help me, please help me. So they turn around and go back into the hospital, and then you never see her again, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So if you cut that scene, then yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, were they going home? I don't know. Like, were they just going to have some air? I don't know. Like, it... But yes, I agree. But then still, it's like, well, if we're dead anyway, what difference does it make? I might as well help this person. Anyway, I don't disagree. No, I do disagree. What am I saying? I completely disagree, but I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I think it's complete. I think it's nonsense. And if they had masks on, the acting would be harder to read. It's a TV show. Anyway, it's fine. We get. What's interesting is Frank's apartment is fucking sick. Frank had won a Pulitzer Prize by the time he was like 22 or something. He's some kind of novelist, or he's a writer of some description. And when Jeevan and Kirsten turn up, he is not super pleased to see Jeevan, and isn't convinced the world is ending until a literal 747 crashes and basically falls out of the sky. At which point it is pretty apparent that the world is ending. We get that sort of match cut with. Is this the match cut where we then have Jeevan and Kirsten going out into Chicago however long afterwards, like 80 days afterwards, and then we cut to the future 20 years later? That's the kind of the two scenes here, is that right?
That's the next note that I had was airplane bad explosion, 80-day for virus to die ?
Yeah, 80 days.
Those are my back-to-back.
80 days after the collapse, and then some years later. Well, or just 80 days so they ran out of food. That's probably the... Geez, you can tell I've read the book. But it's a logical conclusion. Yeah, not a great CG explosion, but didn't need to be. It conveyed what it needed to, I feel. And kind of scary. Airplane falling out of sky, not good. And my immediate thought was I think a worse TV show would have been and that was the plane that Clark was on. Which would have been very funny to me. But he didn't get on a plane yet, so whatever. Happens next episode. Yeah, what do you guys make of this ending?
Good gracious. You said Clark and I went to Superman. Yeah.
No, Clark is the bearded guy who's Arthur's friend. Yeah. Ending, vibes, feeling, thoughts? I know Darth hated the spaceman thing, but I guess we can talk about that in a sec.
Yep.
Yeah, how does this work for you guys as an ending to the first episode? Because, of course, the cut to Kirsten in the future is the big hook here. It's yo, we're going to be dealing with different times now. And she survived whatever happens in the interim. I think is the kind of big obvious pieces here.
Yeah, the fact that they do cut between different settings, I feel like it sort of implied for me the range of ideas and moods and topics that they want to explore. Let me pull up your little index of apocalypse.
Ooh la la, the
genres.
glossary,
Right,
which you can find at zeroindent.com if you are listening or watching. If you are man, I want to see what's going on with the glossary, you can find that. I don't have the exact link, but it's up there as well.
So it's concerned with the collapse story and also the survivor story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of doing it all, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
but
does that, because obviously the collapse story we get, and we're gonna get little fragments of, I think, in episode 2 with Frank and of course Jeevan and Kirsten in their little flat. But I also think that do you get the impression that the collapse is going to continue throughout, or is your feeling at this stage okay, we've done the end of the world, time to move on? How does this first episode set you up for understanding the rest of the show, I guess?
Yeah, I feel like it was so interested in the nitty gritty of the collapse that I thought it definitely was going to sort of continue that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you got so much interesting character out of these circumstances, specifically with Jeevan. What kind of decisions does he make in the face of this? How does it steal him? How does it change him? What does it reveal about his true character kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it does continue that with Kirsten's story in the future, but yeah, I don't know. The collapse is like a very potent like way to explore those things that the show seems to be interested in.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions it will put forward is like, what is worth after the collapse and after you've done the basic elements of survival? Like, what is worth preserving and what is worth like what should be carried forward? You know, after everything is gone, right? I think that's a big part of the traveling symphony. Like, they only perform Shakespeare. What does that suggest? And she, you know, there's a symphony that the composer composes music every year to go along with the same Shakespeare plays. Like, well, what does that say? That the music is new and different. The actors are different. It's different people join the troupe. It's different people vacillate in and out of the troupe. What does that mean? And they have something they call the wheel, which we don't really know what that means yet, but you know, it must mean something. Yeah, I think these questions of like, what is worth preserving and what is worth letting go of, and what can be preserved and what can't, you know, what are people, you know, what haunts you from the previous world, and like, what memories do you have of the, you know, I think a question that you get with Kirsten's relationship with her younger friend, whose name I don't have in front of me, but I think is Alex, maybe. She doesn't remember anything before the end of the world, and Kirsten does, and that's where we get that conversation about Uber. And you have to think, like, is it better to not know how things were, and you don't know what you've lost, or is it better to know what the world was and know what was lost? Like, I think those are questions that the show will keep putting forward, and that I don't think that, like, I don't think that we'll get to the end of this and be like, and that is what the show thinks about this. I think it will be exploring those ideas and probably not offering a conclusion, is my guess. Not remembering how the show.
Well, that's literally what the dude says on the dock in the second episode.
Right.
You know, something like I keep thinking we might have all been better off if we had died in the pandemic.
Right. Yeah. Which is pretty dark, but also like a genuinely useful thought to have, to be like, are we better off actually forgetting the old world completely? Or should we be looking to preserve aspects of that? Or is it just memory? Is that the only thing that is worth preserving? Yeah, I don't know, because obviously the past for Kirsten is a deeply traumatic thing to think about, right? She's 8 when the world ends, and her memories of that's like basically when you're forming memory. You know, 5 to 8 is when you're going to start to have some of those permanent memories, and some of her first memories are the end of the world and her parents dying.
And Arthur
and also
dying.
Arthur dying on stage. You know, Jeevan and Kirsten set off into Chicago. Frank's not with them. What happened there? That's something to think about. You know, the start of her life is objectively a tragedy. And she finds herself playing the lead role in Shakespeare's most famous tragedies 20 years later. You know, what does that say?
Yeah, I was going to say that this, and I don't mean this as an insult, but it's probably going to sound like one. But the way that this is structured with so many mystery boxes had me thinking J.J. Abrams, because it'll cut to, 10 years forward here, and then she's there, but Jeevan isn't. And then it'll rewind 15 years, and then she's still young, but Jeevan's not there. And when they come out of the apartment and Frank's not with them, and they don't address any of these things, but you're like, they'll come back to it. They'll come back to it eventually, because that's what a mystery box is supposed to do, is eventually it'll get opened. But then part of me is thinking, like, if this were done a different way, all of that would normally be answered then and there. You know, you would, if Frank were dead, which we don't know at this point, they would have like a little memorial for him that they would say goodbye to in the apartment before they left. Like, that's probably normally how that would play out, right? But not showing that, we don't know. And it's like this mystery is such a huge part of their overall, like, not theme, but like the vibes of the whole thing.
The literal structural mechanics of the thing. And that is like, unfortunately for us, Emily St. John Mandel loves a mystery box, and spoilers, what's inside the box? It's more feelings. It's more emotions. It's, you open every mystery box and you're like, fuck, now I feel more things. So, you know, I would say do not stress about whether the questions have answers or not. Because even if they don't...
Very interesting comparison. You started off talking about like the trope of the like man adopting the kid, and I had just finished Last of Us season 2, and it got me thinking of Joel and Ellie and how different it was, because you were saying, you know, Jeevan is not, he's not the gunman, he's not the strong guy, he's trying, but he kind of sucks. And then on the other hand, you've got Joel, who can do literally everything and is taking care of Ellie, and both of them are really structured the same, where you see the collapse, but then it just immediately cuts to 20 years later or whatever. So I thought that was interesting.
Patrick, go off, King. Talk The Last of Us. What you got?
The Last of Us. Oh yeah. I mean, yes. I think the difference is perhaps that Jeevan and Kirsten are kind of on the same trauma page, like, because, you know, like Joel lives through the collapse, whereas Ellie's like born like well after it. So like, I'm just thinking of like when they come out of their apartment, they go downstairs and they see like the receptionist guy. He's just dead on his desk, who they, you know, like we saw like a couple minutes earlier. You know, that both has the same effect on them. They're like, fuck, man, I'll be like, this was the last person we saw outside of, you know, us three, and he's just there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like they might have a stronger bond for it. As you say, like, you know, Kirsten's like in that very impressionable age where, like, you know, she's imprinting on, you know, authority figures and learning from them. And there's like, I like that shot where that lady she's like, oh no, can I just like squeeze into this elevator? And he goes like, oh, fuck off. And then you see Kirsten's reaction. She's like, you know, it's like, oh damn, like that's a side of him I haven't seen yet, kind of thing. I feel like there's just a lot of room for like awkward but like realistic growth that the two of them can do in parallel. That's where I see the series going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whereas I think Joel, by the time that you get on the road with them as characters, Joel is like basically fully formed at that point, and proceeds to refuse to change, and that obviously becomes the biggest friction in their relationship. As Ellie grows up and needs different things from him, he's just completely incapable of giving those things to her, because there is this fundamental lie that he's built their relationship atop of. And that's the reason why, in the show at least, Joel and Dina are able to have a closer relationship, because there isn't that lie that sits, you know, at the heart of that relationship. And it's classic, like, the girl that you fancy is friendly with your stepdad because she's trying to be part of the family. Like, it's like a classic maneuver. But I think that where Pat's right, I think the difference is like, or the contrast is, Joel is a bad person. Jeevan is a kind of a schmuck trying to do his best. And I'm saying that as a value judgment of Joel's behavior and the things he does, right? I'm not saying that you have to think Joel is a bad person. If you think Joel is a good person, you need to look in a fucking mirror for quite a long time. But there are ways that you can look at some of Joel's behaviors and some of the things he does, and you might have value judgments of those to be positive things. I think that's pretty fucking difficult, holistically. But I think that is the fundamental difference, is Jeevan is trying to do his best, and he's going to probably, my guess, is rely on Kirsten a bit more, because he is just far less capable than Joel, just in general, right? Like, I don't just mean physically, although I do mean physically. I don't just mean in his ability to enact violence, although I do mean in his ability to enact violence. But, like, intellectually, confidence-wise, like, everything about Jeevan is just less capable than a character like Joel. And I think that is going to engender these two characters maybe needing each other a bit more than perhaps the Joel and Ellie relationship, where they are both quite capable, independent of each other. Even if in that first story, you know, Ellie obviously relies on Joel quite a bit, she is physically quite capable as well of enacting her own, you know, levels of violence where needed. And of course, by the time you get to that second season and that second half of the story, she has become Joel, right? Like, she is the walking killing machine that he always was before the end of the world.
I've only got one more point. Do you have anything else on Last of Us or Joel or anything?
I'm not surprised people stop watching the show. The second half of the story only works as a game. I'm so curious to see what they do with the third season, because I don't know how the fuck you fix it. Anyway, I don't want to spoil anything.
I want to talk about it. We got to move on.
We gotta ping Sam and Danielle and be like, "Yo, emergency podcast. Let's talk mad shit about The Last of Us again."
But no, the only other thing I wanted to point out was what was his name? Scott, that was calling all of Arthur's friends.
Clark.
Thank you. So this was like, be aware if anyone is in a relationship like this and your significant other is like, I'm not going to the funeral. He wasn't my friend. Red flag.
Dude,
get out of there.
I was like, you gotta get out of this relationship, bro.
Oh,
what
my
the fuck
gosh.
is this? But like the morning of the flight, I'm not coming with you. Are you kidding? What do you mean? Yeah. Red flags all around.
I wanted to reach right through the TV and just slap that man. Ooh, that got me.
Yeah, I feel that.
But I mean, he didn't just like he expressed some anger at that like that slap.
So funny,
like,
yeah.
All right, it's just like, yeah.
And then just immediately is like, time to drink some gin.
Yeah.
Very good stuff. Also, I had to explain this to the person I was watching this with, because she was like, huh? Gin in the UK, you typically keep in your freezer, because obviously alcohol doesn't has a much lower freezing point. And when he pulled it out of the freezer, she was like, what was that? And I was like, oh my God, is this just a cultural thing? And it turns out it is. That's a real like UK thing to do, to keep like your vodka and your gin in the freezer. So if anyone was wondering why that is, it's just because Clark is clearly British or something.
I said to my partner, I was like, I thought it was vodka, you know, I don't drink. But I was like, does vodka taste better when it's like ice cold? And apparently it does.
Oh my God. That is the most Patrick question ever. We drink it straight, which, listen, I did that when I was doing keto. When I was trying to lose a bunch of weight, I switched from beer to vodka, and let me tell you, it does taste better when it's cold. So.
There you go.
There you go.
That was one of the most unhinged. When I was trying to lose weight, and I switched from beer to vodka. Like, water was an option.
Well, I'm not gonna not drink. Like, I'm trying to lose weight. Like, come on. Like, what are you talking about? There's no carbs in vodka, Darth. Jeez, do the math.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
I mean, absinthe would be the most optimal way.
That's so true, Pat. God, now I just want some vodka. I might buy some vodka tonight. Anyway. So the only thing that I have is it the match cut where we go from Chicago with the snow, they're walking in the snow, we then cut to the astronaut, and then we cut to Kirsten in the future? Is that the sequence of shots?
Pretty sure.
Okay, do you want to talk about, I mean, we can talk about it in broad strokes as the show goes on. Like, we don't necessarily have to have the conversation now about the sci-fi thing. But, Darth, you want to tell me what you think that shot is, like, what do you think is happening?
Oh, lordy.
Or what, talk me through where your head's at with it, I guess is what I'm saying.
After, like, episode 2, I'm thinking, like, time travel stuff. But at this point, it was completely, like, WTF. I don't know what that was that ruined all of the vibes that I had going into this. And now Kirsten's old, and I hated it so much. And I'm like, I think I like literally wrote down, the cut was terrible. It was pointless. It was confusing. It was a mystery box that didn't need to be there. I had very angry notes on it.
That's so funny. You've been watching too much Star Wars, my friend. Patrick, this didn't ring any alarm bells for you at all, I assume.
No, not really. I mean, yeah, the episode going into this, you told me it was sci-fi, so I was sort of prepared for that kind of stuff with the astronaut. But the episode lulled me into forgetting that. I was just like, oh, this is cool, pretty grounded, like sci-fi post-apocalypse thing. And then the astronaut, I was like, oh yes, that's right.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Look, it could have been worse. It could have match cut to like a alien or something. Like I feel like there are way worse things that could happen. You know.
It was really
initially
just coming out of the blue.
Yeah.
If they had foreshadowed
I just thought it might have been. I just thought it might have been like an astronaut who was just like, it happened to be in space when this thing hit. But then obviously there was like, he was scheming. You could tell. I was like, oh, what's he doing?
And he had the 11 on his helmet too.
Oh, did he?
Which I don't know. I don't know what it means, but it's the name of the show, so.
I am not going to say anything. Just know that the irony later on is going to be delicious. I'm going to eat it up. I'm going to gobble it up. I won't say anything else. I can't talk about it because I'll fucking spoil it by accident. But Darth's reaction is understandable. Let's move on and talk about episode 2 before I say anything more. Or actually, do you want to take a quick break? Do we need a break, boys? Quick pause. All right.
Yes, I do need a break.
Let's take a quick break. I've forgotten how to produce this program because we haven't done it in like 2 months. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back to talk about episode 2. We'll catch you presently. If you like these handcrafted studies of genre fiction, please head over to zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to consider supporting us. Even if you just give us a follow on Patreon, that helps us out. Leave a comment, a like, and if you're in a financial position to do so, you can support us and get access to early content, additional videos, director's commentaries, audio diaries, and all kinds of different things we have coming up. It really makes a difference helping keep independent media crit alive. Once again, that is zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to support us. Welcome back. We're talking about episode 2, a hack from a hand... a hawk from a handsaw. Jesus Christ. That, to be fair, is a hard thing to read. A hawk from a handsaw. Directed by Jeremy Podeswa and written by Patrick Somerville. You will discover that all of these were written by Patrick Somerville. For the most part, until we get sort of into the middle. Patrick Somerville obviously being the showrunner and the one responsible for adapting the books. Patrick, when you're ready, could we please hear the summary for episode 2, A Hawk from a Handsaw?
20 years after the collapse, Kirsten is an actor for the Traveling Symphony, a caravan of musicians and artists who tour North America performing for a select group of settlements, aka The Wheel. A try-hard Dan wins an audition by performing Bill Pullman's speech from Independence Day. The night after the collapse, Kirsten tries to reach her parents, but her calls go unanswered. Back in the present, a pair of strangers meet with Kirsten and Alexandra, the older of which speaks about his dead wife and incongruous backstory. He utters a familiar phrase just as a red flare arcs over the bay. A stale, warm air stirs the symphony's tents as they prepare for the premiere. As if portending further bad news, Wendy and her husband decide to stay at the nearby village for the birth of their child. After a knockout performance, Sarah receives an invitation from the Museum of Civilization to play on Midsummer's Eve, but Sarah refuses. The symphony never leaves the wheel. Kirsten confronts the stranger at knife point, sensing something is wrong. The stranger threatens the symphony, so Kirsten stabs him in the gut. He mutters yet another line from Station 11 as Kirsten leaves him to die. The next morning, Kirsten discovers the stranger's body is gone. Only a blood stain remains. I remember damage. Then escape.
Yeah, this episode rules. This is so good. Imagine sitting down and being like, yo, episode 2, that's where I'm going to cook. And then nailing it like this. This is a great episode of TV. This was one of those ones where I blinked and it was over, and I was like, shit, I have to watch this again, because I didn't take any notes. Like, I was just so in it. Yeah. Really, really great escalation. I love the world building of, like, the post-apocalypse and the traveling symphony. The fact that Dan does the Independence Day speech and they all love it is extremely fun to me. First thing we get, of course, is Kirsten sneaking up on Sarah as a younger, slightly older than we know her, Kirsten. She, maybe still 9 or 10 or something like that. As we said, no Jeevan with her. And she, makes friends with Sarah and seems to then join the symphony at that interval is kind of our assumption here. But what I quite like is this version of Kirsten that we get is sort of, it's clear that she's been on her own for a while. And she's a little bit out of sorts. She's like absorbed parts of the comic book, but then also parts of Jeevan's life. She calls Frank her younger brother at one point. And it's not clear that she knows what she's saying is incorrect. She's clearly, not doing well. At one point, Sarah's like, oh, you've been out here a while yourself, clearly. And Kirsten says, Dr. 11 can't feel time. Very incongruous, clearly not doing well with the isolation. And then Sarah, says, we're the traveling symphony. We travel for a reason. We burn the house down, then go. Just trying to make the world make sense for a minute. And, they blame you if you stay. But they love you like you saved them when you come back, when she's explaining why they travel. And this is, I guess, our little setup is that Kirsten works for the Traveling Symphony, which you've already said, travels around some discrete set of repeatable settlements and plays different Shakespeare, plays with a symphony that is composed by Sarah. And it's pretty clear that, a lot of the people in the symphony, have been there since they were children, sort of thing. Is kind of the implication that you get. A bit of a traveling family, if you like. Yeah. What does this opening do for you guys? Where do we want to start?
I didn't clock the weird stuff she said at the beginning. What did she say? Dr. 11?
The first thing was, when we fix the ship, we can save them.
Yeah.
And then it was the Dr. 11 can't feel time. And I wrote WTF exclamation point.
Yeah.
More mystery box. Yeah.
Well, I think I think they maybe are just lines and details from the comic, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know that it's supposed to be much deeper than that. But then the fact that she gets the thing about, she calls Frank her younger brother, again, is just very confusing.
I don't know, because it's like the end of the last episode has that astronaut sort of, I get the sense it's like a similar sort of feeling to the Watchmen TV show, like there's some sort of like cosmic influence going on, is based on those lines, is like what I'm feeling.
Interesting.
But as we'll see, that doesn't show itself in this episode again. But yeah, I just wrote.
Well, I will tell you.
I just wrote, damn, jumping straight into year 2, and she's a feral girl, and she's the Mad Max 2 girl. Yeah,
she is the Mad Max 2 girl. I did not put that together. That's extremely funny. She's Mad Max 2 girl. She's the Jurassic Park 2 girl. I just have realized something, which I will tell you now. You guys can't Google Emily St. John Mandel until we finish this coverage. Because that might give you spoilers for Sea of Tranquility, and that is going to be a problem. So until I tell you to read Sea of Tranquility, don't look up any of this, because there will be inadvertent spoilers. Darth, what were you going to say? That's my warning, anyway.
I mean, this is just me being my idiotic linear self, but Yeah, when she said that bit about the ship, I was like pausing and like zooming in and like, where's the ship? What is she talking about? How did I miss it? Where's the ship she's talking about? And then like eventually I'm like, okay, there's no ship.
Could you imagine if it, like the camera panned? The boat on wheels or something, you know, like a dinghy with wheels. Yeah. No, I think we're to take it as Kirsten maybe has lost a bit of her mind being alone for this long with only this comic book and memories of Jeevan blending together. Because when she says that Frank's her younger brother, I sort of went, oh, like I think she thinks she's Frank. Sorry, she thinks she's Jeevan or something. And it's kind of lost her grip on reality sort of thing. And the symphony is the way that, you know, she comes back.
That part didn't strike me immediately because it's very realistic for a kid to just adopt other people into their family. So saying that he is her brother, maybe it's just the word little that makes it confusing.
That was the bit that makes it confusing. Yeah, it does. That was why it stuck out to me. That's why I've written it down. Like, that's why I wrote it down, because I was like, younger brother? Weird. But then, like, maybe that, we don't know what the relationship that they all ended up having is for that, 80 days or whatever. Frank seems like he is, like, the darling, genius younger brother of the family, and so maybe just, like, Kirsten thinks that she's Sia or something. Like, we just don't know what to make of it. Except that I thought it was quite sweet that, like you say, it's not uncommon for kids to absorb parts of other people's lives that they care about or that are close to them. And there's something quite earnest about this mixed up way that the state that she's in, and still thinking of Frank quite fondly, sort of thing. Yeah. Also,
just the implication that they're both dead. Like in episode 2, the character the main character, he's like, oh yeah, he's like, it's not like a Joel and Ellie situation like they're together for years. It's like, well, actually, I don't know if they are together for years, but it's like, damn man, they're like less than a year, and he's already dead. Like, it's a bold choice.
Yeah, R.I.P. to a real one.
Well, I mean, his Armageddon provisions were like Twix candy bars. I mean,
yeah, I know.
How long was he gonna last?
Look, he was the loser of the family. I don't know what you guys want. The older sister's
malnutrition.
Yeah, older sister's a doctor. Youngest brother is winning Pulitzer Prizes for his novels. Jeevan is unemployed. He's not exactly the guy that you want going to the shops. Is all I'm saying. Yeah. Interesting. Let's put a pin in that. What happened to Jeevan? I think we will find out. That's what I would say actually with all of these like quote unquote mystery boxes is we will find out all of the answers that you could want, and it's all just more feelings and emotion. And like I think that's probably where a story like this is maybe more effective than like an Abrams story. Is that it's not interested in holding these on. That's not the right way I wanted that sentence to happen. It's not interested in holding on to these mystery boxes. It's interested in providing you answers when it is the most emotionally resonant, or as it relates to someone's state of well-being, mental health, things like that, where an answer makes sense, or someone thinks about something, or there's a feeling that's related. That's where you get the answer, instead of as some plot contrivance or some plot mechanism, as you may have already picked up from just the vibes. It's a very vibes-based TV show. Yeah, so we get Dan doing his little Independence Day thing, which is extremely fun. And at
Did
this
y'all
point,
have any problem with that?
How do you mean?
And do you know what I'm gonna say? I'm just curious how much you're in my head.
It's incorrect, isn't it? He skips a bit. It's not the monologue's
no,
back to, he gets it out of order. I just know that it's not right. That's my only memory, is that he gets the monologue wrong.
The part, something hit me. I was like, this doesn't sound like it's the right speech, but also I'm fine with that because he's like going off of memory, and it could have been when he was like 6 years old or something. I don't know how, but no, it was the fact that they digitally added the megaphone effect when he was holding nothing in his hand and he was pretending to do the megaphone effect, and they added it in post which to me ruined the entire bit, because that's totally breaking the fourth wall for me. Whereas all he had to do was hold up any empty bottle to get the echo effect. It was so simple to do. And
I don't know what to tell you, Darth. This show doesn't care about your feelings.
I know.
It's like,
doesn't care
like,
about realism.
Yeah, at any interval, the show will just be like, "Fuck it, we ball." Like, here's a thing that doesn't make sense, and like, it's just for impact. You know.
Yeah, like it was definitely like super intentional. Like, cause you get the feedback at the beginning when he does it first.
Yeah.
Or he like pretends to pick it up or whatever.
I think.
And I suppose
he's
like
literally pantomiming. Yeah, because that's what happened. He's literally just doing the same thing.
But like, what is the purpose of like showing that entire scene anyway? Like, because, and you know, like what is the reaction of everybody? You know, they are these guys only perform Shakespeare, and there's this guy coming up on stage doing a speech from, you know, like a pretty like campy movie kind of thing. But in spite of that, it stirs up these intense feelings and emotions in everyone. And it's sort of like, you know, it has the effect on those people that it's supposed to have it for those people in the movie when they're hearing that speech kind of thing. And therefore, you know, it is like this heightened, extra reality that's happening in that moment, I think, is sort of what that's trying to convey.
Yeah, and it's Kirsten's
It's not
subjectivity,
aliens.
right?
I was gonna say it's not aliens that are the threat. It's the post-apocalypse, but the message of hope and fighting is still the same.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
like you know, it's interesting how like recontextualizing it is, you know, makes it like sort of just as effective and true as Shakespeare kind of thing. It's like this sort of funny irony.
Yeah, and like that speech is about like fighting for like, it's like a fighting against annihilation. Like that's essentially what Bill Pullman is talking about. Like, and like that is what they are doing. Like it's you know, we're gonna live on, we're gonna survive. Like, you know, we will not go quietly into the night. Like, of course, that's a stirring speech for people at the end of the world. Like, all you're trying to do is survive. You know, like I think it makes sense, and I think to the megaphone bit, that to me is like such a specific, as you say, Pat, very, very like deliberate choice. I think to communicate like what this is like to watch as someone that buys into acting, like this is trying to communicate like when someone is doing the damn thing, how do you perceive it as someone that can buy into the damn thing? And I think that's like, you're supposed to be like, okay, this is Kirsten's subjectivity. This is how she is seeing this. Because he's miming the megaphone and she can hear it clearly, and she, you know, that's kind of how I take it anyway. It is a deliberate appeal to emotionality over logic, or like, and I realize this is why it rubs you the wrong way, because it is literally going, the diegesis doesn't matter. It's about the feeling and the perception and the subjectivity. Yeah. So it's such an interesting choice to me.
Something else that's interesting is the reading that I had for why he was accepted in had nothing to do with that speech. Because assumedly, if he delivers that speech that well, then his previous 5 attempts would have also been delivered with that much enthusiasm and everything. So why he was let in was because he kept trying, and they saw that like work ethic, and they were like, okay, you seem like a good dude. Fine, come on in. We'll give you a shot. Right?
Yeah. That's my reading as well. They're like we're gonna let him in eventually, like, you know, yeah. Dan's fun. He's a fun character.
I like how he's clearly like, you know, he it seems like he's the kind of guy that like maybe can't take a hint like a lot of the time, and you know when he comes, he's like, oh, hey guys, I've come to audition again. And they're like, oh, this guy. And
he goes, super preggers, like, can I rub it? Like,
yeah, I know. Exactly. He's like, wait, very, no, that's inappropriate.
Like, you know, he's that kind of guy. But, and so there's a like a, you know, this idea running through this episode of like, of reading people and like who you can trust and stuff like that. And it's interesting, like this guy contrasts heavily against the guy later on, in terms of, and you know they're both awkward and you know stilted and unconventional, but like this guy is all right and the other guy isn't. And it's like, I don't know, there's some interesting like judgment of characters and reading of people that's going on in this episode. And also, you know, the very beginning scene, I can't remember, but I've written down, well, I can't remember like what prompted me to write down, but I wrote down, yeah, like Kirsten grew up to be kind and caring, it appears. You know, the apocalypse didn't fuck her up. You know, those experiences.
Yeah.
And, you know, why was that? Like, what, you know, what experiences and what lessons and what did she learn? What art did she consume? You know, stuff like that.
It was kind and caring to her specific friends and family, though. Because she immediately gets super aggressive against anyone outside of their bubble.
Yeah. I mean, that's the end of the world, baby. I mean, you get that great line later where the stranger's like, oh, like what do those tattoos mean? And she's like, oh, the number of people I've killed. And then you go, wait, what? Like, okay. Yeah, I think what's great about a character like Kirsten is you get this introduction to her as an adult, as you say, Pat, of this person who is like very social, very caring, very committed to this thing that they're doing. And then you immediately get the contrasting behavior with when the stranger shows up and she's like not immediately, to be fair, but she is untrusting of this guy and she senses that something is wrong. So it's like when she has good, keen instincts and she's very willing to do violence. So it's like, I think a lot of the time with characters, there can be a tendency to essentialize. Like you're either someone that like is kind and caring or you're like the gruff, violent person. I think it's really interesting that Kirsten is able to be both. And like, you know, the show will continue to conflate and confuse and push and pull those things of like, well, how did she get to be this person? And what does it mean to be this type of person? And like, you know, they're traveling perpetually. They don't have like a safe home necessarily. It seems like they're just always traveling and always performing. That's got to be different than if you live in a settlement and you have security, right? That's going to engender different behaviors and different tendencies, especially growing up. Like when you're 14 years old and like you're traveling with the symphony and someone attacks you, like, you know, it's that thing of like, someone tries to shoot you, try and shoot them right back. Like that's how it works now. Yeah, there's something to keep an eye on, perhaps, is what I'm saying.
It's very, very similar to Ellie from Last of Us. She's developed this, you know, the skill of making those hard choices, while not letting it like corrupt her, you know, toward the people that she knows are trustworthy, kind of things. Yeah.
Now here's an important question. What roles would we have on the Traveling Symphony? That's what the people are asking. They want to know. Darth, obviously, in Symphony, playing trombone, I assume. Is that what you would do?
I would like to say that. However, I would be very much Joel in a post-apocalypse situation. Like so much of the stuff that I saw with how the symphony operated, and I'm like, you don't have lookouts here, you don't have people watching the perimeter over here. Like I would be so focused on like the safety aspect of it, that I don't know that I'd do anything, even though like I love music, I don't know if I'd do anything with that part of it because I'd be so concerned about what we lived through and the world that we're now in, where apparently you just shank people all the time.
So head of security is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Dire.
And
okay,
like
that's basically like being a cop
and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course.
I'd be the good cop. I'd only kill the bad people. Man.
Yeah, because there's such a thing as a good cop. All right. It's good stuff. Patrick, what do you reckon?
I don't know.
Yeah, isn't it?
I mean, I did do acting when I was in my younger days, so you know.
I feel like you could act.
Yeah, I could fill the Romeo role. Definitely.
True. You'd be a good Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're
I like
skinny
me a
and
tragic
athletic.
person.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
indeed.
mostly what you need to be Hamlet is be a bit skinny and a bit athletic. When I did drama, I was in drama class for like 2 years, and I was so bad that they literally were like, we can't cast you in anything because you're so bad at acting, it's not even funny. So I ended up doing the lighting for one of the performances, and then for another one, I was a stagehand. So I imagine I would be, but I also can't sew or anything like that, so I'd be bad at props and costumes. I think I would have to be in the writer's room, and I could be a producer or a director or something, but nothing on stage, because apparently that is I was very bad at acting. Not for me, unfortunately. So.
But in the future, they have no choice.
That's
You would
true.
be all they had.
Yeah, that's
So-
true. That's true. I like the well, they have no choice, so they have to utilize you. That's the only way I get up on stage.
You will be all three witches from Macbeth.
Bro, I would kill it as a witch. TBH, I think I'd be a pretty good witch. I'd be
I
a
can-
good. I could be
Isn't-
Hamlet's
don't
father.
Don't they say in the play that the witches have beards? So
They do, yeah. Macbeth is a fucking great play. Y'all go read Macbeth. Go watch oh my gosh, what's Denzel Washington has an incredible black and white film they made a couple years ago of Macbeth, and it's so good. Go watch that, everyone. It's fucking awesome.
I have been meaning to watch that.
Yeah, I love Macbeth. Yeah. It's not my favorite Shakespeare. I think The Tempest is my favorite, but it's my second favorite Shakespeare play.
I don't know when to talk about this, but we're talking about plays in Shakespeare, so this maybe is the right time. That it's really weird that this troupe would make their living doing theater performances, because in our day, in our culture, that's really niche. At least over here.
Yes,
so
America, the land
Yes.
of barbarism.
Yes. So you only have like the educated, certain class of people that are going to theater, and especially would ever even want to see a Shakespeare play. So I got to thinking about it. I'm like, so them being a theater is a callback to the old world, which is now like the 2000s, and even further, them making it Shakespeare and only doing Shakespeare is then a throwback to a further world that even our current world doesn't recognize. And so that's a theme that I don't know what to do with, but I found.
I think that is what the show is about. Is like time and memory and art and like. I guess I'm saying correct. That is correct. You are correct. Yeah, I mean, it also. I think there's two things to think about, which is like, there's no other form of entertainment, so like anything will be interesting, and it seems like they go to the same communities over and over. So there's like it's a known quantity for these communities that these people come and they do Shakespeare, and that's part of the culture of these places that has developed over time by the time we get here. Like, we don't know how it started and how all that went down. But yes, I also will point out that, like, I go to the theater all the time. There's a theater near us that's very good, that does lots of great plays. I've been seeing a lot of ballet lately, and I hate ballet, which I'm trying to work around and actually go see some plays. But I would say that, yeah, that also might just be a cultural thing, Darth. Theater's pretty common here. It's pretty common.
I've seen one play in my time in Brisbane, and it was good.
What play? Do you remember?
I can't remember the title. It was about like a teenage boy getting into a relationship with a much older woman. It was very good.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the best one I've seen was a stage adaptation, like the best in that QPAC theater is a stage adaptation of 1984, and they'd done a lot of like it was like a mixed media like stage where like different parts of the stage could play different stuff on the screens. It was very, very cool. Very haunting. Yeah.
I do want to see Shakespeare plays if they ever come there.
The Australian Shakespeare Company will often do stagings of Shakespeare every couple of years. The next time one comes up, be good.
Yeah, cool.
Be a boys' night out. Go see Shakespeare. Drink some whiskey. Be great.
Hell yeah.
All right. So we've then get the Uber conversation, which we've already talked about. We don't need to revisit that. But the Uber conversation about phones bleeds into the past with the night everything is going wrong, and Kirsten is texting her mum, and this shit is like, this is devastating. The text messages she sends are, "Hello, comma, please answer, mum, I'm safe." And then a little bit later, a pause, "I'm with a family." I was like, God damn it. The "please answer, mum," I was like, fucking guys, like, you gotta stop hurting me like this. It's just devastating.
And the distance between her and like the brothers at that moment, and you know, she's like, it's clearly visible what she's doing. She's calling everyone in her contacts list and no one is picking up. And then the brothers are over there just, you know, worried about their own family, like, you know, reasonable, but like also it's just like, it is an extra layer of heartbreak. That's like this little 8-year-old girl is like just going through the most traumatic thing. It's like, man, give her a hug, please.
Yeah.
I think that's also the answer to the earlier question of, did she know that Jeevan was lying to her? Because she tells her parents, "I'm with a family," which if she had believed his truth that they had texted him, then...
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hadn't put that together. That's a really good... Yeah. Well, I think that's to Pat's point about like kids often being... Or maybe Darth, it was you who made this point about kids always being a bit smarter in TV than maybe they are in real life. Yeah. It struck me in particular of having to like, please answer, mum. I don't know. There's something about that just like really got me this time. And you know, we as the viewer are pretty sure that like her parents aren't like, it's all over, you know, the world's ending. She's not with him in the future. So like, this isn't going to end well. And I think this is part of...
That's a last experience with a mobile phone too, probably, like, or one of the last.
Yes.
And we have that in that conversation earlier. She has a great ambivalence to mobile phones. You know, she's like, yeah, they were good. You know, they could contain every song ever made, but you know, they weren't all that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Is like, I think because they're talking about the phones, and then we bleed into this, which is like the last time she's using a phone, or the last time her phone had any value to her, and it's like. Yeah, it turns out, like, if there's no one at the other end of the phone, it's kind of fucking useless. Yeah. Again, thinking about technology in that way. Interesting.
I want to make a pitch and see what you guys think. What if after, like, a full day, like, the cell phone connection gets restored somehow or whatever, and her mom actually picks up? And like, Dad and I are fine. We're so sorry. Hunker down. We'll get to you after the 3 months that they told us to wait. So in the midst of those 3 months, she thinks her parents are alive, but then they die in the midst of while they're waiting to leave the apartment. It's a completely different experience for the death because she gets that hope that they're alive, which there's never any hope in this entire show because they're, you know, we never see them at all. We never hear from them at all.
So you're saying, what if it hurt even more?
Yes, that's what
I
I'm
mean,
thinking.
it still could. It still could. We don't know what happened in that intervening 80 days. You know, that could still happen.
Okay.
You know,
that's a me sentiment, Darth. It's like, how can we make this more tragic?
Yeah, what if this was more dire?
And David's like, you could still cry. Give it time.
Yeah, it's fine. You'll still feel something. Don't worry. Yeah. I also think that, you know, it's trying to pick away at the edges of like what has shaped Kirsten into being this person. Who is she now? I like that we go from that scene to the swim hole, and Kirsten's first reaction is like, let me go get my knife, to these strangers when they show up. And also this, again, is just like a small detail, but she is wearing, so like they're walking earlier in the scene, and she's wearing like a Speedo swimsuit. And I didn't put it together till watching it this time, but it's because they know that when they get to this settlement, there's a lake nearby, so they can swim. So she just, like, that morning was like, well, I'm obviously not gonna make other clothes dirty. I'll just wear my swimmers. But if you've ever, like, done exercise wearing swimmers, it's very sweaty and unpleasant. I just thought it was a good detail, like, costume-wise. And a lot of the decision-making here is quite like, well, yeah, you don't have a lot of clothes at the end of the world. You gotta make do with what you have, and you might, you know, you might not think about that, I guess, at a production level. But I think it's, again, just another, like, pretty evident that, you know, Hiro Murai's sort of fingerprints are all over this at an EP level. This is exactly the kind of detail that you get in Atlanta and in Legion as well. Telling that she comes up with a knife. And so we get this Jesus-looking dude. He's kind of got the long hair and the beard.
Hold on, you skipped some important little dialogue bits when she's in the water, because that's when they talk about the cabin, right? Or is that after? So, like, she comes up out of the water, and who's ever sitting there is like, did you go look yet? And then she says, like, yeah, I looked in the window, and there's nothing, just like there never is. Something like that.
Okay.
I thought it was here.
It might be. I didn't write that down, so I may not have noted it. Yeah, what?
Do you know what I'm talking about, Pat?
Yeah, but like I am still like quite unsure of like what was happening in that episode, and I can't remember if this was one of those points, but was she talking to her imagined Jeevan? Or
no, there was someone on the dock there. There was someone on the dock with her, but my interpretation at the end of it... Wait, say that again?
Okay, am I going crazy, or was she imagining Jeevan, like,
no,
in like
so
certain parts?
No, so that's
it's
her
a voiceover.
ex. So, okay.
Oh, okay.
There's another brown guy who has...
But I swear, like, every shot, he's like super far away.
I know, but he's a real guy.
David?
I promise, he's a real character. He's a real character. It's him and Alex are there. Because it's Kirsten and Alex that are swimming, and he's on the dock, I believe.
Okay, just a silent, ominous, far away brown dude.
Yes.
Okay.
Whose name I've forgotten. But he is like, yeah, he's her ex, I believe. And a thing that I think this story will do is like ignore age gaps and stuff because it's the end of the world. So it is a little bit like he does look older than her, to be fair, but it's not supposed to be an imagined Jeevan.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, what are they talking? I don't have this dialogue written down at all, Darth. Like, what are they discussing? This cabin, like,
so
do you remember what the context is?
At the end of everything, meaning at the end of the second episode, I have now interpreted this to mean that was the cabin that she and Jeevan stayed at after they walked across the frozen lake, and that's where they spent X number of years, whatever, and he didn't die, he just straight up disappeared. And so every time they go back there, she's looking in the cabin to see if he's just reappeared.
Yes, because, yeah, the question is check inside the cabin, and then did you see any ghosts this year? Kirsten says, I looked in the window, it's the same as always, there's no sign of him. And that's when they're talking about Chicago, and then Kirsten said, it's the ex-boyfriend says, every time I think my first 100 days were bad, I remember you walked across Lake Michigan. And yes, you are correct. The implication is, because then you cut to them leaving, then you cut to the voiceover of Jeevan saying, Frank, I'm opening the door, Frank, is that okay? And that's where then in the real world, where's Alex? And then they go, you know, that's when Kirsten runs off and finds the strangers, right? And Alex is talking to the strangers. So yes, I think the implication is perhaps that Jeevan disappeared at some point, or they were staying in this cabin and he just vanished. And every year they come back because the wheel goes to the same places every year. She checks for evidence a note or that he's returned, or something like that. So yes, good call out.
And this was the start for me. This was the start of the confusing voiceovers, because there was at least one more where you think it's the two characters talking and you just can't see their mouths because it's a wide shot, but then it's not. It's a memory that she is having, but you don't know that until you like watch it twice.
So good.
And so like I'm like, now I'm angry at it because I don't really know what's happening. Maybe I'll love it later on. But I'm like, why are you throwing in these voiceovers when you can't really hear what's happening? And like, I'm like, is this bad audio mixing or is this on purpose? So
it's definitely on purpose. It's to make you be like, what the fuck?
Giving it,
like, you know, because it's that subjectivity thing, right? Like, Kirsten's world like anytime, and this is the thing, like, it's that moment of like these thoughts it's like intrusive thoughts, but like the TV show is what I would describe Station 11 as. It's constantly peppering you with this reality, or then like a super reality of another moment, or other moments blend into each other where a character will see someone who's not really there. Like, it's full of moments like that.
Which is why I thought she was seeing Jeevan.
You know what? Fair enough. I will give you that. That is actually like a reasonable conclusion. Yeah. Really good call out, Darth. I think that's a good detail for later, that we'll need. You know, as we keep moving through the show, I think this question of like what happened to Jeevan is like obviously a big one. Yeah, let's talk about the stranger and the vibes being way off. This dude, you know, Kirsten runs over, and he's chatting to Alex, and it's this stranger is there, the older guy and then the younger guy. Yeah, what do you guys make of this dude, and this whole vibe? And
he was like, what's the American killer from the 60s who had a cult around him? He was like, kind of looked like him. Charles Manson.
Yeah.
That's where my brain went. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to send you guys a picture, because he looks exactly like one of the professional Super Smash Brothers players. So every time I see him on screen, I'm like, why doesn't he have a controller in his hands? Oh yeah. It's every time it's Mango. It's straight up Mango. God
damn, y'all some nerds, man. You're bringing the Super Smash Bro knowledge.
Yeah, well, I only know that because the Super Smash Bros. Like competitive scene is just like wild. It's in terms of like lots of bad people and doing immoral things.
I can imagine. This won't surprise anyone, but Patrick is like an absolute villain with a controller in his hand at almost every video game. But Smash Bros. In particular, it's no contest. Like, I refuse to play video games with Pat.
I like not talking about it so that I can just shock people when I when I hand them to them.
Yeah, you walk into the party
I have
and it's
to travel
like,
to Australia.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Bring it. Darth.
I mean, look,
bring it.
The inevitable Smash Bros. Round robin of the Zero Indent company. I know what the rankings are, which is like all of us at the bottom, and then it's just Patrick and Darth fighting for supremacy. I reckon Sam would be. I reckon Sam's a decent Smash Bros. He seems like a guy who'd be good at Smash Bros.
I don't know. He's not a PvP guy, so.
True. He plays boring story games like I do. Who else would be good? My brother's okay at Smash Bros. Yeah.
Do you play Melee, Darth, or the new one?
Actually, like exclusively Melee, because none of the other versions, none of the official versions have the wave dashing mechanics and all of that stuff that Melee has that make it, in my opinion, the most competitive video game of all time. But also Rivals of Aether, that 2 that came out recently, is the absolute closest thing that you could get to Melee. Highly recommended. Extremely fun. They had Melee like professionals that were like helping them build it, so it's so close to Melee. It's incredibly fun.
Wow, that's interesting.
I definitely know what wave dashing is, so that's good for me. Now, what we okay, so creepy Jesus guy. The vibe is off. And it's not just that his vibe is off. He starts telling the story about his wife dying and like his son or whatever, and just like it feels fake. I don't know, there's
Like,
something
not
about
true.
it. Yeah, it feels completely not true at all in a way that's like, why would you lie about this? And he asks her about her tattoos, and she says, you know, they're the number of people I've killed. And the thing that really struck me, I don't know if you guys picked up on it, is he starts saying things that Kirsten recognizes. You know, he says to the monsters, we're the monsters. And she's like, where did you hear that? He's like, that's just something that, you know, I can't remember what he says to that, but, you know, he dismisses it. Did you guys pick up on that?
It just came to me.
Yeah, it just came to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I'm assuming it's in the comic.
Right. So then it's like, well, she knows he's lying about that. So what else is he? Yeah, he said it just came into my head.
And they already established themselves that they're there for Kirsten because they're like fans of her specifically.
Yes.
So, and then they just happen to know this like very intimate detail about her, and you know, like the fuck is going on? Like these absolutely way off vibes.
Yeah.
Do you remember why they were there? Like what their job is?
Yeah, they did.
I thought that was so interesting. He says we're Hamilton, so they're also a traveling theater troupe, but they're doing Hamilton. And I don't know if that's just he and his brother, or what.
What? They're
Yeah,
from
I remember
Hamilton. We're from Hamilton. We're passing through St. Dolores.
Oh,
Do they mean Hamilton the place or Hamilton the?
Hamilton the place.
Oh, that's less. Oh, no, I'm disappointed.
I took it
thought
that
they were
way
doing
as well,
Hamilton the
Darth.
play.
Could you
Yeah,
imagine?
I took it that way as well.
Yeah, like I thought that was on purpose. I was like, in this post-apocalypse, they're doing all of these plays because that's what people love right now, and it's better than trying to reenact
That's
Big
so
Bang
funny.
Theory or something like that.
Yeah,
But if
I
you were
thought
gonna-
there was a whole industry of post-apocalypse theater troops.
I think it's just the one, you guys. But like that would be weird because like if you could do any play, you could do a good one instead. Got him. Fucking got him. Oh, got him.
I was like, should I disconnect? I kind of want to disconnect right now.
I love how upset people get when you say Hamilton's not a good play, because it's not. Anyway, the has structural issues. Anyway, and it does a lot of stuff with America's history that maybe isn't great. Anywho, they're not from a theater troupe. They are from Hamilton, unfortunately, Darth. I'm sorry to say. And they say that they were passing through St. Dolores, which is where they are currently. Found out the symphony was on the way, and we had to stick around, which is probably a lie because it seems like everything this guy says is a fucking lie. He says that phrase that she recognizes, and then we get the Wendy thing. That's kind of the next big piece I have. If we want to talk about the actual play itself, and this news that Wendy is not staying with the troupe, and is going to go have her baby elsewhere.
In that same scene, just because this establishes Kirsten's mentality a little bit more, she actually like interrogates them to make them prove that they saw them perform. He said, we saw you perform Taming of the Shrew back, at this other town or whatever. And she like points the knife at him and she's like, what songs did we do? And like the kid has to answer. And if he gave the wrong answer, then there's a knife in his face. Right. So like, I loved that because it's her being really protective of her people and like intelligently handling the situation in ways that a lot of people don't, or characters don't.
Yeah. I think that's right. What is it, Coriolanus and Taming of the Shrew, and she's like, all right. And she completely chills out. Yeah, she's like asking for receipts,
So
basically.
It's a reasonable thing to ask in the apocalypse too. Like,
Totally. God, imagine staging Coriolanus at the end of the world. I feel like there are so many like of Shakespeare's plays that are based on like legends and like stuff like that. But that one, like, that's like Roman. That'd be fucking wild.
I have no clue what that's about.
It's based on like an ancient Roman myth. It's classic Shakespeare. It's not good. It's not great. Taming the Shrew is a better play, I know. But yeah, that's a really good point, Darth. And the other thing we get is obviously the confirmation of that she's killed people because of the tattoos. We don't know what the
y'all believe
tattoos.
I assumed that was just BS.
What?
Like now that I know this is like sci-fi, right? Because of the space station, I'm like, she was probably born with those tattoos or something like that. That's definitely not the people she's killed. She's just trying to act tough because she doesn't trust this guy. That was my...
Oh, I completely assumed it was true. I had no reason not to.
I mean, it's probably not what the tattoos represent, but I don't have any reason to doubt that she's killed people.
Yeah, and also like, I mean, do you know what the tattoos are yet? Like what they are tattoos?
They looked like Nordic runes or something.
I was gonna say a fish hook, and that's as far as I can take it.
You're both wrong. They're knives.
It's a fish hook.
It looks like a fish. Yeah.
See, in America, when we go fishing,
we get a shotgun and we point it at the water. No,
I've seen the Simpsons. You light dynamite, you throw it in the water.
Yeah, and then all the fish float up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are supposed to be knives. And Kirsten's clearly a knife person because she got that big old knife, and then she gets a new knife for the season, which is really fun. It's a little.
see, knives are cool. I tried to tell you years ago.
Knives are cool when she does it. When you do it, it's concerning. All right. And I realize that America is basically the post-apocalypse, but still. Yeah. So the setup here is that they're sort of they're gonna do their play, and contiguous to this, Wendy, who's clearly one of Kirsten's very close friends, is in the process of trying to explain politely that her and her husband are gonna stay at St. Deborah's to have their child, and we get then the play itself, where Diane is forced to step in as the queen, and we sort of have everyone watching the play, and as we sort of already alluded to earlier, it's Kirsten doing the monologue from Hamlet, right after the death of his father, and the intercut between her learning her parents died the night of the collapse. What do you guys make of? Actually, do you want me to give you the shall I explain the Hamlet thing first? Because it's probably important.
Yeah, because I didn't write down what the Hamlet passage was, but I wrote down the passage in Hamlet seems to reflect the theme about truth and your true self.
Yes. So
yeah,
basically Gertrude, Hamlet's mother, is having a go at Hamlet for being upset about his father's death, because she's like, well, it happens all the time. Like, it's a Tuesday for us when someone dies like that. And Hamlet can't be honest about the fact that his grief is overshadowed by his fury at Claudius. And so he's sort of talking to his mother in circles. And the bit that I highlighted here was, "'Tis not alone my inky cloak, good mother, nor customary suits of solemn black, nor windy suspiration of forced breath, together with all moods, forms, shapes of grief that can denote me truly." Right? There is all of these forms of grief. It's not this depression. It's not just this depression. It's not just that I'm feeling a type of way. It's that, like, there's no way to capture what I'm feeling. What I'm feeling is larger than just I'm sad. Because she accuses him of being sad. He's like, I feel more than sad. Like, this is a complicated thing I'm feeling. Like, get off my back, mom, type of thing. And she's reading this while feeling the feelings of, or calling upon the feelings of, when she learns that her parents died. And we intercut with a young Kirsten reacting to that, and freaking out. And when she's like, when Jeevan eventually gets her to open the door, and she's like, I got a weird text. The text is like, I can't remember what it says, but basically like the person whose phone this is dead or whatever. Don't come here or whatever. I think you're right, Pat. This is about truth, and it's about like what grief looks and feels like and what it means to grieve. The place of anger in grief is a big part of Hamlet. You know, obviously the biggest theme of Hamlet is like it's this tragedy, but in trying to get revenge or justice for the king's death, Hamlet leaves a trail of bodies and ruined lives behind him. You know, this tragedy of Hamlet is like he does more harm in trying to right this wrong than was ever done by the wrong itself. And you know, he forsakes this one opportunity he has with Ophelia for, you know, like an actual life. And does so, you know, at her expense, literally, so that he can go and complete his revenge, which ends up leaving him hollow and alone anyway. And so I think it's thinking about those things of like, yeah, what does grief look like, and how does it move us, and how can we describe the shape of our grief? And the answer seems to be it's impossible to describe; it can only be felt, and that is part of what acting is about for Kirsten, is finding ways to label and identify and hold the shape of this grief and this trauma, and try and do something with it, and try and communicate some truth of it, or some small truth of it, or some aspect of it, and in so doing, and in so labeling the monster, maybe escaping some part of its, you know, terrible hold that it has on her and her entire reality, right? We talked a little bit just before about like some of the scenes with her becoming quite difficult to follow because her past trauma is like literally like infecting her reality, and coloring her worldview. You know, I think it's acting for her is, you know, maybe a sort of a slow and gradual lifelong exorcism of some of this trauma and grief, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sort of conjures up like thoughts of like how grief is impossible to describe because of the range of emotions, like, you know, in all its complexity and its paradoxes and stuff like that. You know, like, in, you know, that reflects on a larger scale in like the world around her. You know, it's not just a collapse story and then a survivor story and then a rebuild story. You know, it's not just people. The world ends and then people are like, oh, okay, let's try and get it back to how it was. It's sort of like a more complicated, messy, like, yeah, we're going around in a theater troupe trying to preserve and capture, you know, the essence of our most important art, but also like there's no real attempt to I don't know, preserve it still, or to you know, rebuild the world necessarily. You were just sort of like, you know, out here surviving, you know, having interpersonal conflict with friends who want to stay and raise families, and you know, even like evil is vague and unclear, you know, with the stranger and stuff like that. Like, it's yeah, I don't know, like, just fate is impossible to describe. You know, it's the best to show it through feeling, kind of thing.
Yeah, and to put the passage I had from our previous episode just again here to from Sea of Tranquility, I think is probably relevant for us to think about, is this passage from St. John Mandel and Sea of Tranquility, where the narrator is thinking about and lecturing about pandemics and the apocalypse story. And this is the quote. My point is, there's always something. I think as a species, we have a desire to believe that we're living at the climax of the story. It's a kind of narcissism. We want to believe that we're uniquely important, that we're living at the end of history, that now, after all these millennia of false alarms, now is finally the worst that it's ever been, that finally we have reached the end of the world. And, you know, the end of the world happens, and then the world keeps going, and the world keeps ending. The end of the world is always happening in this story. That's, you know, through memory, through trauma, and then literally for us as like the people viewing the thing, like we're constantly ricocheting through time. And that is maybe to my point earlier about the way that this story is playing with these ideas of grief and loss, is like, it's a perpetual thing. There's no beginning or end to grief. It is always there in the having of the thing and in the losing of the thing, and those aren't different. Those are one and the same. And these ghosts that we have are part of that. And they are inseparable from that experience of having something. The impression of something is as important and valid as the thing itself. I think as a society, and I know that Felix writes a little bit about this in the Three Ecologies, but we have this real problem of like an unwillingness to confront really difficult things, an unwillingness to like really confront the darkness at sort of the heart of like humanity. And I think that Saint John Mandel has a unique ability to really make these things present and sit with them and help you sit with them and help you feel through them. And this piece of acting from Kirsten and the way that this is sort of shot, I think is just such a beautiful illustration of taking a book and going, how can we completely how do we convey the feeling of reading prose and having it inside of you? How do we convey that on screen? I think this sequence is just a brilliant example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Something I thought was interesting was you had alluded to this earlier, David, when Kirsten, when they're arriving, and she says that she hates doing Hamlet, and everyone's reaction is that like she is the most revered actor in the troupe, like meaning like the audience thinks that, and it's like the story is saying, purposefully saying that her grief and her past trauma is what has made her so successful now, even though it's something she hates doing.
Yes. Or that it's painful, right? Like that she has to revisit that trauma. Because you imagine every time she does this monologue, it hits her in that same way. You know what I mean? Like it's that same monologue of like, okay, describe your grief. And then suddenly the grief is real again and she's in it again. Every time she does this monologue, she is back the night that she found out her parents died, right? That's enough to make you not like a play, I think. Yeah, you're right. And to be that revered and to be the star of the show, I think that's maybe, again, talking and thinking about art, like how much of yourself do you have to give up and give over to the audience, and how much of yourself can you hold on to and retain, and what parts of yourself do you apportion off and sell to an audience, or sell during the creative process in order to achieve something great, in order to achieve the communication of these impossibly large cosmic things that are ephemeral. And I think that's going to be a question that we have for Kirsten throughout the story. Is like, what is she willing to give up? What is she not willing to give up? And how does this world shape her? And what opportunities are afforded to her to exercise those various traumas and ghosts through art and through other mechanisms, right?
Through stabbing a bitch.
Stabbing a motherfucker. She does do that. So, yes. The episode... do you guys have anything else on that scene, or should we talk about the way this wraps up? Because there's really two beats here.
I'm good to move on.
The baby's already in progress, right? Because after the play is when they're holding the kid.
The baby happens during the play? I don't know. The baby is there after the play, yes, correct.
Because like one of my favorite bits was before when Kirsten is having the talk with Wendy, and she's like, Who is Karen? Why does Karen get to tell you what to do? And then like 30 seconds later, she's like, Karen, where are you? We need you. Like I adored that whole scene.
That's pretty good. Classic Karen behavior. Let me just say. Let me just say that right now. Yeah, I like the implication where Kirsten's happily wheeling Wendy, and then she gets pissed off, and she's like, "You fucking take it the rest of the way." Like,
yeah,
right. Such a petty thing to do.
And then when they're actually coming into town, they're playing "Give Up the Funk."
Yes, I thought that was really fun. They're playing "Give Up the Funk" on their musical instruments. Also, a absolute banger shot as well, like the drone shot of the wagons and stuff coming around the bend, and the water in the background and the water tower. I was like, yo, like this is a good looking show. That was the first time I wrote down on my notes, like, really pretty show.
Yeah, and that was a bit of the audio editing that I adored, because it transitioned from like a full orchestral version down to just the one brass instrument playing as he's leading the front, and he doesn't really know how to play. He just knows like what the sounds are sort of supposed to be. Yeah,
like it's kind of wrong. It's really it's fun to imagine them imagining the act, like in their heads they're hearing the full thing. Very good.
But yeah, that was one of my other cinema sins, because the subtitles say that that's a tuba, and it's not. It's a euphonium.
That's on the subtitle, people, man.
That's an egregious error, David.
Dear HBO Max, in your program, in your 2021 program, Station 11, I'm writing this letter to you.
It's weird how it is from HBO, but in Australia it's streaming on Stan, even though there's a HBO app now. So,
Patrick, that doesn't surprise me because Telstra own everything. So what are you gonna do? Yes. Okay, so I want to set up the ending, and then we can talk about what all happens. We get so Alexandra's she's performing a dirge, and like for the baby or whatever, and then we get the first proper lines from.
It's
Station
for the
11.
stranger's dead wife. Which feels really relevant. The stranger's dead wife, who might be made up.
We're pretty sure is made up. So Alexandra does this dirge for this dead wife that's probably not real. And we get our first line of Station 11, and then after that we get Kirsten. I'll explain the line and all that stuff in a second. Kirsten goes to talk to the stranger, and he's flicking a lighter. And the lighter flicking is in time with the music, and then it stops. And this I thought was such a good detail. She confirms the lie that Darth has already set this up for us, but earlier when she said, where did you see us? What plays did you see? He says Mackinac Island, and that's not how it's pronounced. It's pronounced differently in a way that gun to my head could not tell you. It's Mackinac, Mackinac, not Mackinac. And then she's like, "You're creepy," and she's like, "And you're creepy," and he says, "You're
and the mushrooms."
The
mushrooms.
The mushrooms.
He called them like chicken of the he was eating them, and he said these are like chicken of the woods, and we used to get them all the time back up north. They don't grow up north. Yeah,
right. And he says that you're charged with that day zero pain. It's like you never left. You're incredible. And then he says it's important Cody and I join the traveling symphony. We won't be with you for long. She says no, and then he says your friends are going to start to disappear. And then he threatens them, and that's when she stabs him. And she goes, no, sorry. She goes, where did you hear that line? To the monsters, we're the monsters. Where did you hear that? And he says the prophecy. Put a pin in that. The prophecy. Capital P.
Always a fucking prophecy, man.
It's always a prophecy, man. Always with these Jesus-looking motherfuckers, there's always a prophecy. And then she stabs him, and as he's lying there, he says, I remember damage. Which is reflecting off the line we got before during the dirge, which is, I remember damage, then escape. So I remember damage is the first line of Station 11, followed by then escape. And again, he is basically implying this is from the prophecy, whatever the prophecy is. And that's kind of our setup, I guess, is like, what is this prophecy? Who is this dude? Because the next morning, when she gets up, he's gone. He's not there. He's gone. And he's clearly survived because the younger guy that's with him is, dragged him out by the lake and is helping him get patched up. So she did not, in fact, kill him, it seems.
I just remembered one of the details that made it like that, increased his bad vibes. It was that when they first meet him, he's like, yeah, I don't know if I can raise him without his mother. And then Kirsten's like, isn't he like 17 years old? Like, I think he's raised already.
So funny.
Very strange thing to say.
What a weird guy.
The lake, just because you mentioned it, did that part of it when the stranger's sitting in the wheelchair, did that hit y'all? It was so weird.
Say more?
Say again?
Okay, so Cody saves his brother and gets him in a wheelchair and then pushes him out to the end of the pier, and then they sit there and they stare out over the lake while the stranger is bleeding out onto the pier because it's close up on the blood that's pooling under the wheelchair. So at this point, I'm assuming that they're looking at the cabin because that's the only thing that's been alluded to that's over there, the cabin where Jeevan disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I can see some potential dots to be connected there.
But the first time that I saw it, I was like, did he drag his brother literally through the water and up onto the pier? Is that how he got them back there? But then they weren't wet at all. So I was like, okay, that's not what happened.
No, I think you can walk to the pier from where they made camp.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. But the stabbing was like right on the edge of the water, I'm pretty sure. So that's first what I was like, how would you get a bleeding body away? And I was like, oh, you just drag it through the water.
True. Oh, okay. Yeah, good point. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Disposing of a body 101. Yeah.
Correct. You would know, Mr. American. Now, I do think that...
No, I talked to your mom. That reference won't make sense to anybody.
No, it will not. At all. That's not helpful for the viewers at home. Now, the two things I want to say. One, I think that the prophecy is something that we'll need to keep an eye on. And then the sci-fi thing that you guys have already talked about, put in that same camp of like stuff to watch out for. What do you guys think this show is gonna be about? Or is it just more of this? Because one of the things that I struggled with when I first watched the show is I was like, at this point I was like, what's the thing? Like, what is the story? You guys have a vibe yet?
Yeah. I just thought it was going to be more of this, to be honest. Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that this is a like Terminator type thing where they have to raise up the chosen one to fight the evil and save the world, and it's going to be her. But like you said, it's kind of hard to tell at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I did have an interesting comparison, which I think you'll really love, which is she's lost 4 different people, which is why she doesn't even hesitate, immediately janks this dude. Yeah. And I was like, this is Anakin Skywalker. This is straight up. She's got the exact same history of loss, and she is defending what she has tooth and nail, just like Anakin did.
We went a whole episode without talking about Star Wars.
Didn't make it this time.
So close. So close. I might just cut that out of the edit. Just so we have one. Just so we have one. Just so we have one. Yes, it's very funny to me that you would relate it to Star Wars, Darth. How out of character. Yeah. And she does it with her new knife as well. We didn't say that. She gets this new knife for the season, and it's a switchblade type knife. Those things seem like they would be a liability. I feel like a spring-loaded knife is just an accident waiting to happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Seems like a bad idea.
I feel like I'm going to get myself in trouble. I'm going to be quiet. But the other interesting part is that, yeah. But the other interesting part is that she doesn't use the one that's literally at his throat. She goes for a surprise attack, pulls out the switchblade with her left hand, and jabs him in the gut. Maybe she's thinking this won't be a critical injury, right? Because the throat definitely would have been, and she already had a knife there. So why didn't she do that if the next morning she was surprised he was alive and the body was gone? So like I had all those thoughts going too, and I'm like, did she want to kill him or did she not want to kill him?
Right. And it's kind of a reaction that she has. Like, stabbing him is like a reaction. Was she even really thinking? Like, I think that's the other thing, is what was her intention there?
And I don't know what y'all's vibe is, but I was totally on the, like, he's not actually evil. Like, he just meant, if I don't come with you, people will disappear. Not, like, as a threat, but this is what's going to happen. Was, like, very much, you know...
I'm not going to say, because anything I say will be spoilers. Patrick?
We're just talking about the
no,
vibe
this-
you got when you watched it the first time.
I can't... Yeah, but, like, I will give something away invariably, and I'm doing my best. There's only, like, 3 things in the story that I can give away. And I'm trying to
What are
talk
they?
around it, so... Hard.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, it is ambiguous, like, but there are too many other creepy things that he did and said that just, like, to the point where when he says, at the point where he says, oh, other people in your camp will start disappearing, that is totally reasonable to take that as a threat given the way he's been behaving. It's like,
Yeah.
so,
Given his lying about everything.
yeah.
Yeah, I would, you know, this guy's vibes are off. I also really, I just think, like, some of the choices they make here are so interesting. Like, the fact that he pronounces, like, I love the way that, to my point earlier about language being, like, the only thing that actually exists in, like, prose and stuff like that. I really like the way that, the mechanism that she figures out he's lying is she kind of holds on to that information and lets her suspicions build until she's sure that he's full of shit, and that's when she confronts him. I don't know, I just think that's quite canny writing for Kirsten as a character. Where it's like, well, if you stabbed everyone who lied to you at the end of the world, you'd never meet anyone new because everyone's going to be naturally protective and secretive in some way with strangers. So you do have to develop these mechanisms of feeling things out. Yeah.
I feel like...
and she just walks away. Like nothing happened.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I feel like maybe the stabbing in the gut is like an intentional thing with a smaller knife. If you stab someone through the neck with a huge knife, that's a very brutal execution. Whereas, like, it's, you know, it's there's a difference between doing that and stabbing someone in the gut and letting them bleed out, you know, just like on their back, sort of in silence. Like, it's a more civil way to murder someone, and like a perhaps more acceptable way when they're found out. I don't know, something along those lines.
Yeah, and he was American, so it was, you know, 3 inches of fat to get through, so it didn't really hit anything.
He's American at the end of the world, though. Maybe that's muscle. I don't know. Yeah, I just really like this TV show, you guys. I don't know, like, we very rarely... That's not true. We talked about Daredevil for, like, 3 years, but we very, very rarely do we get to sit and talk about something I just really enjoy, and that's what one of my favorite things about going to be about this unit is, like, I love this TV show. I love the books that we're covering. I like the films that we're covering. It's going to be a real treat for the senses. But in particular, what I like about Station 11 as a TV adaptation is... And I'm going to try not to talk about too many of the differences. I might do at the very end. As I said, I don't think it's going to be that productive. But the choices they made in adaptation are really centrally focused on keeping the vibe and the effect of reading the book. And it's more about translating the feeling than it is about literal stuff. I think, you know, like sometimes when we talk about adaptations, it's like, well, in the book, this character did this, but in the TV show, they gave that action to another character. Like, this story is not worried. This isn't worried about that stuff. It's worried about, like, can we communicate the feeling of when you read that section of the book? Can we communicate the emotion of when you take that moment of the book into yourself and you pass it? There are big critical logistical changes that this TV show makes from the book in a way that, like, feels really natural. And that you would not believe is not part of the book. Like, it's really, really incredible how much narratively they change, and everything still feels so emotionally resonant and so of a piece with the book. I think it's a fucking miracle the show is as good as it is. And I would love to see Somerville adapt the other two if that's still part of the plan. I think
feel that way about Blade Runner as an adaptation of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Perfectly captures the tone and the vibe and the ideas, but like changes the narrative pretty drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Good TV show. I'm excited to watch more. We have to go somehow an entire 2 weeks without watching the rest of the show. It's going to be hard work. But next time we are talking about episodes 3 and 4 of Station 11. I'm very excited. Patrick, it's that time of the episode where you tell the people where they can find more of you if they want to.
Oh, well, if the people demand it.
They want to know, Pat.
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. A Method to the Madness is our podcast. We have a website, amttm.com. You can find our episodes and our socials from there. Just underwent a redesign recently.
That's great. Good job, Mitchie.
You did all that.
Yeah,
yes, good job.
Yeah, go check it out. Go subscribe. Go give it a review. Do all the things that you do with podcasts. I think the most recent thing up on that feed is probably still our Matrix coverage, where we watched all 4 Matrix films, which was a super interesting.
What about the Alien?
We never published that Alien episode, dude. In your brain, you have edited reality. We haven't. I promise. It's not. You decided that we published it, and we never did. Anyway,
right, I'll have a look.
And hey, we might even do an episode this year. Who knows? Darth, what? I know what you've got coming up because I'm helping the script supervision. But where can people find you? What have you got to plug? What should the people check out? Keeping in mind this will come out in about 2 weeks.
YouTube Darth, to DARTH''D, and huge essay in the works. I don't know what to pitch until it's done, so let's talk again in 6 months.
Yeah,
and I hope it will not actually take that long.
27 drafts later, we'll get there. It's fine. Yeah, go check it out, Darth, on YouTube. Links to both those 2 things in the show notes. As always, if you've made it this far, you already know what it is, zeroindent.com for everything we do. Patreon.com/zeroindent if you wish to support us and unlock the bonus episodes of this very podcast. The next bonus episode to go up on the feed will be us watching and talking about the Tony Gilroy banger, Michael Clayton, which I'm very excited about. I'm trying to get Alex involved. I'm trying to get Rybold involved. It'll be a really fun discussion either way because Tony Gilroy is a fucking genius and that film rules. So you can go check that out as well as get access to over 10 years of exclusive Patreon content. Any way you can help support the show, we really appreciate it. Patreon's the best way to do that. Or if you want to get something for your money, you can go to underink.press to find all of our merch and my books. We appreciate the heck out of any support you give us. We just launched our new Zero Indent t-shirt. You'll be seeing that on screen right now. Ours haven't even arrived yet. That's how recently we launched it. It's very fun. I'm super happy with how the design turned out. I spent weeks trying to figure it out while I was in the UK, and then I just had a light bulb moment when I got back, and it's quite a simple, classy shirt. We're very, very happy with that. Once you can find that at underink.press. That'll do it for this episode. Wherever you find this, we appreciate a like, comment, a review. It helps more people find the show, and the best way to help the show is to send it to one person you think might enjoy it. That's it. That's all the plugs. We're getting out of here. We appreciate the heck out of you watching or listening. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do, and I am so excited to talk about more of this show. And as always, it's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world.